Good evening, everybody. Welcome tonight to the Southington Town Council meeting for April 25th. And before we open our meeting, we have two public hearings on the docket. The first public is the Board of Finance proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-23. The chairman of that board is here. Mr. Leary, would you come on forward and talk to us about the budget coming up?
Sure. Thank you. Spots. Good evening, Chairperson Triano, members of the Southington Town Council, and everyone in attendance. You have before you the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget as recommended by the Board of Finance. This budget asks the Town Council for authorization to spend $162,728,341 from the general fund. That number is broken down with $104.4 million to the Board of Ed operations and $58.3 million to general government. And please note that the general government budget also includes the debt service encompassing both the Board of Education and general government bonded expenditures. In addition, the budget is seeking $6.6 million for the sewer fund budget, $277,000 for animal control, and $34.6 million for year one of the 5-year capital improvement plan. The resulting impact on the mill rate and the taxpayers is an increase of 0.1 mills, expressed as 0.3% increase, essentially flat. Property taxes will increase 0.3% this year, and I'll discuss motor vehicles separately as we have an anomaly this year. So for sake of speaking, a home with a market value of $100,000 would see a $7 annual tax increase, and it just goes up from there. A home with a market value of $200,000 would see a $14 increase. A market value of $300,000 would see a $21 a year increase, and $400,000 a $28 a year increase. But before I proceed with the budget recommendation presentation, I'd like to make 3 very important points for your consideration. Local taxes are forecasted to increase approximately 4.5% in the following year in fiscal year 23-24. This is driven by debt service, the referendums on capital spending, and the expiration of federal grants mainly given to us related to COVID-19 pandemic. During the pandemic, our local Southington government, utilizing grants from the federal government and other conservative measures, did all we could to keep tax increases at or near zero to help the taxpayers and the community both economically and emotionally. In this year's budget, 2022-2023, we saw grand list growth of $150 million, generating an additional $4.4 million of new taxes. While grand list growth is to be desired, and we thank Lou Perillo for his economic development work over many years, this year we also have an anomaly as existing motor vehicles appreciated in value, causing their taxes to increase and generate $3 million of revenue. That is the main reason why the mill rate is essentially flat this year. Residents should expect vehicle taxes to increase this year based upon the market values increasing. So all of our work shows that existing motor vehicles, which generally depreciate each year, have appreciated. They've increased in value. So a lot of folks, just to be very frank with this, a lot of folks will look at their tax bill and say, I have the same car I had last year, but I'm paying more tax on it, when the mill rate is essentially the same. That's because of supply chain issues, and everybody would know if you really focus on it, that the price of new and used cars and a lot of other things has escalated. And they're using Blue Book values to value the car, and the existing cars have increased. That increase is generating $3 million in revenue to us when you take the increase in the value of the cars times last year's mill rate, or the current mill rate. $3 million is coming from appreciation of motor vehicles when historically they've only depreciated. Each year you have a car, it becomes worth less and less and less and less. Not this year. Keep that in mind. And as we move forward as a town, we saw voters approve a new library, purchase development rights for Southington Country Club, and we anticipate community support for the capital improvement plan, and we anticipate favorable referendum outcome in November 2022 for the high school roof at $7 million, athletic fields at $17 million, and then the following year, November of 2023, $120 million as we move forward with the solution for Flanders, Kelly, and Daranowski. The $120 million will be less the state grant, which we think will be about half. So that'll be a $60 million expense to the town as we figure out the solution for Flanders, Kelly, and Daranowski elementary schools. And that's likely to be brought to the voters in November 2023. So we have to remember that what we desire, we also need to fund. So as we see yes votes coming on all these major capital projects, we will have to fund them, and funding them will cause an increase in taxes. But we have to connect the dots. You can't have one without the other. On behalf of the taxpayers, we completed our work and present to you this budget, and it's comprised of federal and state mandates, contractual obligations for salary, wages, and benefits, and required basic services. It also includes enhanced services and special services our citizens and town council expressed an interest in preserving and funding. Our process included working with the town manager, the Board of Education throughout the year to fully understand the needs. We insisted that honest, transparent, responsible budgets be provided, along with a long-range capital plan, including detail and business justification, return on investment. This was the case. We were presented very responsible budgets from general government and Board of Education. Individual member review of the budget provided by the Board of Education of the town. Our process included inviting several town departments and the Board of Education to the Board of Finance public budget review sessions. During those sessions, we collaborated with the presenters. We hosted a public hearing where members of the community were able to comment on the budget, and also holding Board of Finance workshops, public, where everything we do is public workshops on the budget. And during those meetings, the Board of Finance reviewed and discussed the components of the budget, with input and dialogue from town management, Board of Education, the superintendent of schools. This collaboration proved to be very valuable. The challenge before us is to continually ensure taxpayer money is spent in a manner which yields the most effectiveness and the most efficiency. As we reviewed the budget, our objective was to recommend an appropriate budget. We set out to take a long-term approach, reviewed priorities, and for each item, we had to determine whether spending as proposed, a reduction or an elimination, was in the best interest of the taxpayers. Risk factors in preparing this recommendation include the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on our community, and the federal and state aid to Southington, a 40-year high inflation that we're starting to see, national supply chain issues, an unprecedented appreciation in vehicle values, and several major capital items either approved or heading to the voters for a referendum vote, likely to be approved. After our work concluded, the Board of Finance voted on this budget recommendation. For the general government funding, the year one of the 5-year capital improvement plan, for the animal control fund and sewer fund, the vote was 6 in favor and 0 opposed. For the Board of Education operations, the vote was 4 in favor and 2 opposed. The 2 dissenting votes favored more funding for the Board of Education. What you have before you is a bipartisan recommendation. Our board is by charter a bipartisan board. There are 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats currently serving on the Board of Finance. Even though this budget recommendation to you is complete, the Board of Finance remains committed to working to drive effectiveness and efficiency in town operations on behalf of the taxpayers. Some noteworthy items. Grand list growth. This year, we experienced an increase in assets on the grand list of $150 million. At a current mill rate of 29.03, that growth generates $4.4 million of taxes. Our grand list after revaluation stands at $4.587 billion of assets. It's important to note this year that $3 million of the new taxes, once again, is coming from appreciation of predominantly existing vehicles. Vehicle appreciation of this magnitude is unprecedented, as vehicles generally depreciate over time. Revenue sources. Southington's proposed general fund budget of $162.7 million is funded in the following manner. General property tax, $133.7 million, state grants, $23.1 million, billing for town services and interest income, $5.4 million, and the use of excess fund balance, the rainy day fund excess of $1.8 million. Use of contingency. Contingency, as we define it, is an unassigned expense item in the general fund budget. It's essentially a budget for an unknown item at the time of budgeting. Typically, we budget approximately $850,000 in contingency. At times when union contracts are open, we include unexpected retroactive wage increases in the contingency. This year, our contingency is at $835.8 million and includes two things. A standard contingency of $600,000, a little bit lower this year, but the intent is to get back to budgeting at $850,000, and $236,000 in contingency for open contracts that are open at the time of our budget. Those will later go to the departments based upon the outcome of the contractual negotiations. Some notable items, and I'll share this with you. I'll email it out right after this. Some notable items you should just be aware of in here. $3 million, again, for the third time, $3 million of tax revenue, because we never had this before. $3 million of tax revenue is from existing vehicle appreciation. It's reflected in the grand list growth of $150 million that generated the $4.4 million of new taxes. Reduction of one administrative staff position in general government, and the objective is to reduce where we can and add where we need to. And that's kind of how things work. We will be adding in this budget 2 new police officer positions. That will give us 72 certified police officers in the town if we hire the 2. 3 new firefighters. The new firefighters are funded by the SAFER grant, I think for a period of 3 years, and then the town would then take on the cost of those 3 new firefighters. Fortunately, the governor's budget remained at level funding for Southington, so we're stable in terms of money we get from the state government. And the state also had a recent benefit of federal grant revenue. When that ends, the state goes back to its own fiscal trajectory, and so does the town. Board of Ed continues to have ESSER funds and American Recovery Act money extended to them for COVID-19, but this is the last year we expect any COVID-19 related grant funding, either to the town side or the Board of Education side. 5-year capital plan, year 1. This year in this budget, we're seeing we've approved $34.6 million for year 1 of the 5-year capital plan. Notable projects that have been approved. Pending, some of them are pending the referendum vote, but the high school athletic fields at $17.4 million. That's pending a vote in November by the voters. The high school roof and including solar and firehouse number 5 roof for $7 million. Sewer infrastructure repair work for $2.8 million. Park improvements, including the recreation park pool for $2.6 million. Roads for $1.5 million. Heavy equipment purchases, sweepers, dump trucks, a leaf machine, $1 million. And then other category, radios, vehicles, IT equipment for $2.3 million. The funding sources for the first year of the capital plan. 24.2 of the 34.6 will be bonded. 5.7 comes from the American Recovery Act, comes from the COVID funds the town received. And then cash and fund balance used will cover 4.6 million. And that's how we get to the 34.6 million, which is year 1 of the 5-year plan. Balanced budget, rainy day fund. We consider this budget a balanced budget for the 10th year, actually it's the 11th year in a row. Prior to 2011-12, the unassigned fund balance was used to balance the budget until we implemented a plan to reduce and eventually eliminate the use of fund balance to balance the budget. In October 2013, the policy floor was raised from 9% to a more conservative 10% of operating revenue. So we maintain approximately 17 million in the rainy day fund, representing 10% of revenues. At June 30th, 2021, the unassigned general fund balance that we call the rainy day fund was at 24.4 million. The use of 1.8 million in this budget would leave 23.6 or 6.6 million additional above the policy floor of 10%. Without any other changes, the rainy day fund will sit at 14.9%. And again, the policy we put in place holds it for 10%. So we have a little excess in there, but that gets complicated too. Our fiscal policy stipulates the excess can only be used for capital projects or debt reduction, and the actual fund balance can be used for emergencies and one-time opportunities. That's why we have a rainy day fund, emergencies and one-time opportunities. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any question anyone may have.
Thank you, John. Does anyone have a question for Chairman Leary? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairman Larry. As always, just a clarification. You said you meant to say 800,000 on one of the items you brought up, and I think accidentally you said 800 million
Contingencies.
of the contingency.
Oh,
fund.
800,000, yes.
800,000. Yes.
Yeah, not 800 million.
Right.
800,000.
Yeah.
I saw some members of the audience fall back a little bit. We want to make sure
Oh, I
everyone's
didn't even realize I did that.
But everything
you.
else was perfect.
Yes.
And any contingency money that's not used will just generate what's called a surplus at the end of the year. Or any unspent money will do that.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Tom, by the way. Yes, Chris.
Just a couple comments. First of all, John, as always, thank you for such a detailed presentation. It really gives oversight to the whole process, and I really appreciate all your efforts and coming to us tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. I think it's, you mentioned it a couple times, but I think it's really important to tonight recognize and acknowledge all our town departments that helped with the grand list growth. That really, we've been very fortunate, and I think this is the third or fourth year in a row we've had great growth in the grand list. So thank you to all town departments for all their efforts to increase the grand list growth. I know you mentioned a couple times the motor vehicle revenue is unique this year, so obviously that's not something we can expect to see. That probably can be attributed to what we've seen in the news with shortage of even purchasing new vehicles, just chips and
supply chain issues.
So it's kind of a unique experience. And last thing I want to point out, I want to thank you for acknowledging, which is how you opened the use of the COVID funds. I also just want to stress, I know last year Val and I expressed concerns about using some of the COVID relief funds, especially related to the Board of Education budget, for fear that it would create a cliff. And I know you did speak to that a little bit as those COVID funds run out. So it's still a little concerning, the fact that those were used. It was utilized that way last year. So hopefully, I know you're trying to come up with a plan to address those, the cliff that's coming.
Yes.
But I appreciate you pointing that out. With that, I'm just curious, you mentioned the votes for the budget. Can you talk a little bit about how you arrived at the $500,000
Sure.
further from the Board of Education?
Yes. One of the great things about our board, and the thing I like most about it, is everybody comes prepared as an individual with a number in mind. Usually it's a reduction to a request. So spending is going to go up. It's never we haven't really reduced the budget. We've trimmed back the amount requested in the increase. We've reduced the requested amount of an increase. The beauty of the board as a whole is that, six people come together with a number, and consensus is what gives us that number. It's not anybody's one thing. So just for example, if two people came to 500,000, one may come to it because they wanted to reduce a certain service or reduce a certain service level. Somebody else may come to it because they thought the mill rate was too high. They each come in with their own reason for coming with the number. So consensus is what breeds it. The thinking here, and I got to try and separate my thinking from the overall board. We weren't too far off. I think we were. The two dissenting votes were somewhere around 250 to 350 reduction, and the majority votes were at 500. So on a $104 million budget, we were close, more close together than it may appear. One set of thinking in the Board of Finance room was the Board of Ed has to reduce its overall footprint, meaning not just take and absorb this cut, but shrink a little bit in the footprint because the number of students has decreased over the years. That was one set of thinking. And I think that pretty much, if I had to sum it up, that would be the prevailing thinking, that if we can get a $500,000 sustained cut, a cut that doesn't come back to us next year, because this year, fortunately, the Board of Finance could cover that because they still have the ARP ESSER government COVID funds. So this year they can cover that cut. But what we want to do, and I believe it's the thinking of the board, but again, six members, or at least four, the majority, came to the conclusion. In the majority of opinion, I think there's a pressure to cut and sustain a cut of $500,000 on a $104 million budget. You have a $104.4 million budget asking for a sustained $500,000, a $500,000 that will not come back next year.
Just to clarify. So I guess my concern though is with the Board of Education budget this year, there was no new positions added. There was really nothing new added to that budget. And to your point, that use of the COVID funds is not sustainable. So to reduce an additional $500,000 this year, and I know at your workshop that was actually discussed too, about a further cut may actually create a larger cliff
Yes.
in the future. So that's why, to me, it's kind of contradictory to reduce, especially solely on the Board of Education side, when some of those funds are being used from COVID relief funds, which again are not sustainable moving forward.
Right, they're not sustainable because they won't be here. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we have to look ahead. And when we look ahead this year, we're looking at pretty much a level budget that's been presented. The mill rate stays essentially flat. But when you look at next year, it looks like taxes are going to go up 4.3%. We have to take a hard look at our service levels. We have to look at our service levels going into 23-24 and 24-25. And we have to take the curve of growth and spending and just lower it slightly. Deliver the same services, just do it more efficiently, which means to take some costs out. 500,000 on 104 million. We hope that could be sustainable through some good planning and leadership skills. It's not a. We didn't see it as being a lot. We'd rather have a sustained 500 than a, say, $1 million or $1.5 million cut that can't be sustained. That just comes right back to us. We got to do what's realistic. The best I could answer as one person.
Yeah, Val, go ahead.
John, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Val.
thanks for being here tonight and for the presentation. So just to follow up, I guess, was there discussion about, so the 500,000, was there discussion about having that be split between having it come out of the Board of Ed budget and maybe some of it coming out of the general government budget?
There's always that discussion. There's always folks that, if you're working from the mill rate backwards and you're saying, I want to achieve a certain mill rate, and you're crawling back up and saying, okay, what do we do in the parts to achieve the outcome we want? Then yes, that discussion would come up. I think in the vote, what you're seeing is the Board of Finance essentially saying to the Board of Education, sustain a cut of 500,000. Another thing you have to remember and just remain aware of is that on the general government side, every line item is controlled by the Board of Finance. We have line item control by department, by line. So in other words, police department gasoline, we own that line. If somebody overspends it, they can't. They have to come to us first. If they underspend it, we get the surplus. They can't even move it. So we own every department, every line on the capital budget and the general government budget. With the Board of Ed budget by state statute, we give one number. And what the Board of Ed does, they do through their own finance committee and through their own leadership. So, we don't have the line item control. So all we do is give a number, and we don't have any line item control over how it gets achieved.
Right.
They own that.
Right, and I think that's, I mean, I'm going to echo what Councilor Palmieri is saying. I think that's just a concern because of, that they have to rely on these funds that aren't going to be here. And it's a $500,000 cut. So I would have liked to see something along the lines of cut some, if you have to make that $500,000 cut some from Board of Ed and look to cut some percentage from the
Yeah.
general government.
But I think
understand the
so what I'm going to say more clearly is we expect that to come from Board of Ed.
Okay.
We weren't working from a mill rate back. We weren't saying, oh boy, the mill rate for the town is too high. Let's look everywhere.
So from the beginning.
We directed this to the Board of
To
Ed.
the Board of Ed, okay. I just have another question on, I know the debt service, I don't understand
Yep.
debt service an awful lot, but.
We got Amelia here.
Amelia. So is there a way, you had said, John,
Yeah.
and forgive me if, is there a way to use some of the rainy day funds earlier to pay down debt service?
could look
knowing
at-
that we have a lot of capital?
We could look at rainy day excess. So what we do is we keep 10% in the rainy day. So 17 million is what is the 10%. We have to keep 10%. So as spending grows, we put more in there. We have more than that in there right now. If we go to the rainy day fund at this very time, we have, we're at 14.9%, or let's just say we have 6.6 million more than the 10%.
That's
Now,
the
some would easily say, well, why don't we use that? We have 6.6 million more than the policy limit on the rainy day fund. That's excess. Why don't we use it? We run into a problem now with the rating agencies. Regardless of our policy, which is somewhat conservative, and there may be an appetite to raise it to 12%, but if we draw from that, even when we draw from it for a noble purpose like reducing debt, it looks unfavorable upon us. And we have two things. We're, number one, Southington's in Connecticut. So the rating agencies already look at us slightly in an unfavorable eye. And then if we draw from that rainy day fund, it harms us in another way. And I could have Mr. Shota and Amelia.
It also
Courtney,
establishes
help
a
us.
cliff because what happens is that without raising the base of the budget itself, if you're taking money out of the unreserved fund balance to pay your debt,
Right.
which is a separate line called debt service, that number is going to, the following year, I got to take more money out of there to equal, because the budget itself never gets up. You see what I'm saying? The base budget doesn't go up. So therefore, what I'm doing is I'm using, in essence, my reserves to pay
the
for
debt.
an operational situation because I'm putting in debt service. So next year when it comes away, I still have the same debt, but I didn't raise the budget. So therefore, where do I get it from? I have to go back to the reserves and keep pulling it out. And that's a dangerous thing because you form a cliff. And also, as the chairman mentioned, that's not something the rating agency.
Even at home or in business, when you start to reach into savings for operations, as we say loosely in accounting, you start circling the drain. If you're in business, that's a problem. When you start reaching into your savings and you don't have a way out, it's a problem. And also, the rating agencies won't sit with us for extended period of time to really engage in discussions as to why. They'll just look at key points or key movements we made and make an assessment.
But what they like to see, though, Councilman, is that you use your additional debt reserve, in this case, the unreserved fund balance, for one-time capital expenditures. They like that. But they don't like to just put it on for money that's future bonding. They don't like to see that.
And that's something that we're going to do.
We do that. We do it all the
with
time,
the
yeah.
one-time
1.8
capital.
million.
We've done that for probably 6, 7, 8 years now.
Okay.
And they do like to see that we're maintaining our infrastructure. They'll look at things like, are you maintaining your infrastructure? How much do you have in reserves? Can your town afford the operations you're putting forth? And we've been very good. In all three rating agencies, we're one lower than the highest rating. And to be honest, that's where we want to be. If somebody came in right now and said, we can do something and you could have the highest rating by all three agencies, we may think about it and reject that. We like the position we're in, one below. We still get the best interest rates, but we know we don't run the high risk of losing that rating.
Right.
And you'll get downgraded. If you get up to the AAA, getting downgraded even a little bit doesn't look good. So sitting one below that puts us in a great space.
Okay.
And we've been there for, I like to say forever, but for a very long time.
Jack,
Thank
you
you,
had
John.
something you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Larry, I guess my question is, what I'm seeing here, or been seeing kind of, is obviously our town is growing, increased
Yes.
spending as well. And I'm just really concerned on, again, a fiscal cliff that we're running into. Are you guys, you mentioned that the 23-24 budget would be a 4.3% increase. Is that based off of the revenue staying the same or mirrored to what we're currently at?
No, we grew the revenue slightly. It's based off a forecast. Now, as the vice chair would say if he were here, the numbers, it's based off numbers that are just estimates, numbers we made, numbers we know are incorrect. But that's how you do a forecast. You take the latest thinking and you put it in there. So with the latest thinking, we were looking at, I don't have it in front of me.
It was
But at the-
1.5.
Oh, this. No, I was looking for.
I believe we used 1.5, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we did a growth, put a growth rate on revenue slightly. We did have to adjust. This year, we have a lot of real estate conveyance tax, a little bit higher than normal, so we didn't forecast. Everything we get that's good, we don't continue to we have to look at everything. So we actually cut that back.
Yes.
So we put a growth rate in revenue. We put a modest growth rate in the grand list growth, the normal trajectory growth rate we see aside from the automobiles. We put that in. We took a stab at a slightly lower percent increase from general government and Board of Ed. But when we put it all together, with debt service being as much as it was, we're pretty much predicting, not this year's a flat mill rate, but the following year, we're looking at about a 4.5% increase to the mill rate.
Yeah, well, and that's obviously one of my concerns.
Yep.
We're looking at other towns, their mill rates actually dropping. They're planning for that, and with fuel prices increasing, interest rates increasing, the conveyance fees will probably drop because of the home values, again, what people could afford based on what the interest rates are. So I think, again, the 4.3% is being super conservative. And then my concern is the future years and people being hit all at once. And this, again, our economy, the way it's going, this kind of reminds me of 2008. I graduated in 2008. The economy seemed good. Fuel rates went up. Fuel increases caused fuel surcharges. And then in 2009, we looked back at 2008 and we said that was the beginning of the Great Recession. So again, that's my concern is that, again, if that's what happens to our economy and then all of a sudden these huge mill increases, what's going to happen to the businesses in town as well as the homeowners. So what I also would have liked to echo what Councilman Palmieri and DePaulo said is those two dissenting votes, I was reading the minutes, I think they wanted to see cuts from both ends rather than just the Board of Ed. So again, it's kind of a little disheartening to see our kids or, the teachers and staff obviously take the cut on one side, but I'm also happy to see that we're increasing our officers and firefighters because I think community safety is very important. So I'm just super concerned on future years, and I know we can't project it all, but like you mentioned, businesses and all that, you try to project that, and I just think that the 4.3% is being super conservative, and the last thing I want to see is like a 10%, 8% increase. Then what would that happen, as far as the residents? So
It's a valid concern. We projected the next 4 years out. But again, remember that the general government budget was approved 6-0. So at the end of the day, there's discussion about everything. Almost everything's on the table for discussion. When it comes to a vote is where we tally it. So as far as a cut on both sides, people may have wanted it, but in the end, the vote was 6-0 in favor of the general government budget. So at the end of the day, nobody wanted a cut there. But then the cut went to the Board of Ed in a bipartisan 4-2 vote for $500,000. But trying to sustain the $500,000 would lower the trajectory of spending and help us in the future. We know and we all appreciate that the next, not this year, but the next 3 years will be a high increase in the tax rate. And there's almost no way around that. We look at it, it's a very difficult situation we're going to face as a town. And we have our fuel locked in. Our fuel is hedged in a way where we're locked in at rates, and those rates will expire. And then whatever the market, the prevailing rate is, will be subject to that. So there's other risk factors in here.
That's right. John, excuse me. Bill wanted to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chairman Larry. So I just, before I say this is not an attack on the Board of Education or the superintendent. The majority of their financial obligations are negotiated salaries. I understand that.
Yes.
But I just want to clarify what you said. You said that student enrollment is trending down or going down? Is it current? So student enrollment currently is down year over year, or is it trending?
Yes, it's down.
Okay, so it's going down, yet our operational costs are increasing.
Yes.
So is that a concept that you find in business ever? You work in business. Do you ever see that? Is that really? I mean, if you had a restaurant and you received less patrons, would you increase your wait staff?
You would have to adjust. But of course, special ed is a challenge. You just don't know what needs you're going to get in special ed, and that becomes the wild card. If it was all regular ed, the argument may completely hold that you could almost divide it back by the amount of students in a regular ed situation. I think the special ed, the experts in the room would say the special ed situation is the wild card.
State constitution requires everyone to have education. I understand that.
Yeah.
I heard you say that. I wanted clarification that so student enrollment is not down, it's trending down too.
It's trending down. If you look at the actuals, yes.
Paul? I'm all set. You all set? Anybody else have any questions for the chairman? Thank you so much, Mr. Leary. We're going to ask if there's anybody here that's here to talk about the budget, but I don't think they are. But we're going to find out. Are they?
There are, yeah.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to send you this and answer any questions.
Oh,
Thank you.
John, are you
Colleen,
gonna email us?
Colleen, did you want to come? Hang on one second, John. Colleen, Chairwoman of our Board of Education. Thank you for coming, Colleen.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Colleen
evening.
Clark. I'm the chair of the Board of Education here in Southington. I come to you this evening asking that you support the education portion of the town's budget as recommended to you by the Board of Finance. I believe this year's budget is responsible in that it contains no major projects or equipment, no special projects, and it does not request or add any new staff other than staff proposed and approved as part of prior budgets adopted under the previous board and Superintendent Cannellan. I have been very pleased with the collaboration that has come with this current budget season, including the budget workshops attended by several of you during the Board of Education budget adoption process, as well as real collaboration and meaningful dialogue with the Board of Finance, not only relative to this current budget, but with consideration for future budgets. We understand going forward, we must be conscious about future debt service as well as variables in play relative to the grand list. I believe with the level of collaboration we have established, we will be able to bring future budgets forward that meet the goal and objectives of the district as well as the town that is responsible to the taxpayers. In closing, please know that Mr. Medancy and I remain available to answer any questions or provide any information that this council desires. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Just
Have
one
a good
second,
evening.
Colleen.
Yes.
Paul wanted to ask.
Not just a question for you, Colleen. First, thanks for coming out, and thank you, John. But just to confirm the discussion, because we use the term cuts a lot, the proposed budget increases for both general government, proposed increase from the Board of Finance is 3.62%. So increasing spending 3.62% over last year, and the Board of Education is a 3.8% increase in spending over last year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Medansky, do you have anything you want to say? Okay.
Hardest thing to say is no.
Okay, very good. I think everyone is all set. Thank you so much, Chairwoman
Thank you.
Clark. Thank you so much. John, thank you for understanding.
Okay. John Moise, 238 Stonegate Road. Good evening. It's been a while, but I've been paying close attention to the budget during the last several years. Last year's budget included funding from the Congress signed into law by President Biden. The money was meant to assist the towns with one-time expenditures such as a ladder truck, bridge work, and a whole list of that was approved by the Board of Finance and the Town Council through the Town Manager's Office. The Board of Education was also given funds from the law signed by President Biden as well. This was meant to assist the students and the issues that deterred their learning experience with extra programs that would be limited to a year or two to get students in a better learning environment, transitioning from Zoom class to in-person class, as well as those with more learning disabilities because of everything that happened with COVID. Last year, without any thought for the Board of Finance, what the Board of Finance had done to ensure the cliff we are on does not cave in, the Board of Finance was totally disregarded, so this town council could say they had a zero tax increase, which was not even the case with the revaluations on property and business, causing many in town to see an increase in property tax, guys. You reduced the budget to the Board of Ed by over $1.4 million and told them to use the federal dollars through a loophole. Meant for one-time expenditures, but it was meant for one-time expenditures, but they put it in the operating budget paying for 14 new employees. This year, the Board of Ed states that there was no new employees in the budget, which is very debatable as those 14 temporary employees from last year are now part of the operating budget going forward. It is clear that the Board of Education has their backs up against the wall when it comes to these 14 employees. Fast forward to this budget. Going through this process, the cliff is here and has been acknowledged by the Board of Finance, and more on that in a minute. With the proposed increase in the state budget from the Governor Lamont and the hopefully soon to be approved by May 4th, be approved budget by the legislation. It seems like it will be done, and we hope, and there's no extra time on that. And the money that President Biden has approved, Southington should be in great shape. The question is why are we reducing Board of Education budget by at least $500,000? And I say at least based on what the town council did last year. There's no guarantee that $500,000 is going to stay there because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, plus or minus. As a former Board of Finance member, when looking at the budget, we always looked at the entire town to ensure it was fair and balanced approach between the homeowners, the businesses, education, elderly, and all services that would be left intact, especially police, fire, and highway departments. This year has a new twist. Never happened before, in my knowledge. No reduction from the town government and $500,000 reduction, again, as of tonight, for the Board of Education. I do not, again, believe this has ever happened in our town prior to this year. If you believe this is the right amount to reduce the budget, then at the very least, make the reductions fair and balanced. This is in your power. It's a 65% for the Board of Ed and 35% for the town would be appropriate. That's $104,053,000. That comes to the 65-35. What has happened this year and even last year is the town council and Board of Finance may be ensuring there's decisiveness and adverse relationships between the town and the Board of Ed government and the employees. This council can review the budget and make the right choices to ensure there is a fair and balanced approach to continue how we have always dealt with budgets. As for the financial cliff I mentioned earlier, it is real concern to the Board of Finance, as displayed tonight by Chairman Leary. Wanting to hold a workshop this Thursday to better communicate the finance, my understanding that has been now canceled. Hopefully, this board and the Board of Finance will get together prior to your meeting of the budget, because there was a lot of good ideas that Chairman Leary brought up tonight and your board brought up tonight that you guys can bring this together and maybe we can solve this problem together. One of the things that bothers me the most is one of the plans being floated by the Board of Finance, a member, not the whole Board of Finance, but it's out there, is an increase the mill rate by at least 0.50, a half a mil, to soften next year's falling off the cliff, that 4% that Chairman Leary was talking about. This is the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard of. You're going to pay this year, have the taxpayers of this town pay for this year for service they're not getting until next year. That's a lot of things happen year over year. We've seen this where we think we're going to be in such bad shape, and lo and behold, things get better. The grand list goes up, more funding from the federal government and the state government, so we just don't know. So to do that is not a wise decision. The reason I'm bringing this up is because there's only one board that controls the mill rate. That's the Board of Finance. It doesn't come back to this council for a vote. So that's why we got to be very careful. In section 730, the amount to be raised by taxation, tax levy, upon adoption of the budget by the town council, the Board of Finance shall fix the amount of revenue to be raised by taxation for town and school purposes combined, so as to preserve a balanced relation between receipts and expenditures, including any estimated cash surplus or cash deficit from the current fiscal year. The Board of Finance shall thereupon, on or before the third Monday in May, in each year, fix the rate of taxation on the last property grand list as point sufficient in its judgment to produce such amount. Again, this is the sole responsibility of the Board of Finance. They could take that number, go up, they could go down, or they could stay the same. Now, mostly it stays the same, but I remember, and Vicki, Mr. Chairman, you remember in years past, the old Board of Finance, prior to John Larry and myself being on that board, they would play with this ridiculous. The surplus that we have now is a credit to what John Larry and the Board of Finance, Kevin Benoit and Sue, and even when I was there, we very much concentrated on this to make sure we would be okay for the rating agencies. So I just would caution that when you're having these discussions, get that off the table. It's really important. We don't want to overtax this year for something that may or may not happen next year. So I hope you do hold the workshop, and I just want to make sure that after all, these are all the reasons for the cliff that were present. They were present last year. All the things on the list, save the library, I think, and maybe the fields that we're doing this year. Things need to be done in this town. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's how we do it, and the voters voted on these things, and it's done. So we all own this. The people living in this town this year. What about the people, if you've overtaxed them this year, they move out? Are you going to give them a credit? It doesn't work that way. So I just want to thank you all for your service. I know it's a difficult time. It always is a budget time. I just want to thank you all.
Thank you, John, very much. Thank you. Anyone else want to? Yeah, about the budget? Good.
I read something, so I just kind of want to know where that's going to be.
And don't forget your name and address, though,
Yep.
for the record.
Regina Coviello, 12 Beecher Street. I read something recently that Southington, and it's probably not going to be for this year, maybe it's for next year's budget, I'm not sure, where we are going to be getting money for the charge of nippers. And if you looked at the article, I guess there's a lot of nippers sold in Southington. They already said since October 1st, they've already they figure Southington will already get like $22,000. So add some to that, you're probably going to have more. And it said something about environmental.
Yeah, those are, I mean,
I didn't know how that was
It's
gonna
specific.
work.
The state statute says that Southington, all municipalities will receive,
Right.
your thoughts are excellent. It's $22,000 to use for specific items.
Right.
Specifically, they could be used for cleaning up with the roads and things like that. So more than likely, when we get the money, we'll put it into what's called a reserve fund.
Gotcha.
And use it for possibly buying sweepers, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
But that's specific amounts.
Yeah, I just saw it and just figured I would ask, that's all. Okay,
That's
thanks.
great. Anyone else, please, wishing to speak on the budget? Mr. Madansky is coming up. Hang on one second, Sean. Thank you. Please come up.
Good evening, Steve Medancy, Superintendent of Schools. Just want to run a point of clarification. The 14 positions Mr. Moyes was referring to are not in our budget again this year. Those were positions that were one-year positions that were created to reduce class sizes in second grade. And then secondly, the 12.25 positions that you do see in this year's budget, that was used to balance last year's budget as part of the reallocation plan. Those were positions that were always in the operating budget, and the goal was just to try and get them back in the operating budget. So I just wanted to run a point of clarification on that. Thank you. And lastly, around the class sizes, we are an increase of 80 special ed students. So 54 of the 69 staff members that have been added over the last 4 years are related services, ABAs, paraeducators, special education teachers, BCBA, speech and language pathologists, and school psychologists. 6 of the staff members that were added were bringing in-house cleaning services back to Southington High School because the contractor could could not supply the labor, and a lot of our guys were working overtime, and also we had a quality of work product issue and some turnover, so we brought those folks back on. And then lastly, a staff member that was added was because we terminated the contract of an outside service provider for one of our special education programs and hired our own school psychologist, which saved the district about $38,000. So there are additions in staff, but that's to an increased special ed enrollment. Overall enrollment, and I guess the easiest way to explain this, the town manager and I had a great conversation about this. If you eliminated an entire department in the Southington Public Schools, you would expect to see that service go away. But we have 315 classrooms. We are down 262 students over the last 4 years. That's not even a net of one student per classroom. So they don't all come from the same place. We have to remember they come from 13 different buildings, 12 different grade levels. So it's not like when you see less students that directly correlates to a staff member. So I just wanted to offer that as some clarification based on the dialogue this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Sean, please.
Sean Slight, 50 Knowles Avenue. And thank you, Steve, because I had some of those questions. So as it was mentioned, the $500,000 cut is concerning. There's obviously a semantic debate on whether it's a cut or not. There's contractual obligations by the Board of Education every year, cost of living increases, negotiated contracts. So my concern as a parent in this town is where that's going to come from, and is it needed at all? Or instead of a cut, why aren't we investing more in our students? Last year, as John pointed out, there was a proposed cut by the Board of Finance, and then the town council decided to cut it further. And we're using federal money that was supposed to go for counselor services to deal with a once-in-a-century pandemic to make it easier on our children. How are they going to deal with this going forward? Parents are stressed out. People were not working. Kids are stressed out. Kids know what's going on. We all know this. Kids can sense things. So how are we going to set them up for the future? I'm concerned because it seems like we're not, as a town, investing in our kids and our families. We have, and it's been spoken about, I believe, here before, there's a mental health crisis going on in a lot of our schools. What message are we sending as a town by not evenly cutting from the budget or maybe even investing more in our school systems? But our kids, especially the ones who are old enough to read the news and understand it, are seeing, well, this isn't a priority for our town. This isn't our priority to provide temporary counselor service or even permanent counselor services or resource teachers to catch kids up because of what happened during COVID. Education is not a business. It's a public service. It is not supposed to be run like a business. It is supposed to be run with the best interest of our children and the families of Southington. So before you agree to a $500,000 cut in the proposed budget, and as I understand the proposed budget by the Board of Education, I believe it was a unanimous vote that was no increases for any services, no new teachers, and yet it's being proposed to be cut $500,000. I want to know what's going to change. Is my child's class size going to go up? Are there going to be less services or less activity for the children in our community? Where's the money coming from? And what message are we sending to our children? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who's next? Anyone else for the budget? Last call for the public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing right now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Leary and Mr. Madansky and Mrs. Clark. We appreciate everyone's input, and we thank you. The conversation is going to continue. Very good. Thank you so much. How we doing, everybody? Everybody all right?
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to the next item on our public hearing, and that's the modification of seal, town flag, and display of flags ordinance. And Attorney Riccadone, would you read the ordinance as was presented to us by the ordinance committee?
I will, Madam Chair. I'm going to give you a brief, detailed summary.
Okay.
The title has been changed from seal and flag to seal town flag and display of flags. An article named Article 3 has been added to the end of the charter provision, which states, in adopting this ordinance, the Sullyton Town Council declares that flagpoles owned or maintained by the town of Sullyton are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression by the public, but rather as a non-public forum for the display of the flags authorized herein as government speech. No flag other than the flags of the United States of America, State of Connecticut, POW, and MIA, and the flag of the town of Sullyton may be flown or fixed on any properties owned or maintained by the town of Sullyton, with the following exceptions. A, for any property owned by the town of Sullyton, the following flags may be flown at the discretion of the Town of Sullyton Veterans Committee. 1, the official flags of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. Or 2, an official flag, ensign, or service pennant of any military unit in recognition of that unit's service to the state of Connecticut or the United States of America. B, for any town of Sullyton owned property serving as an office, station, or substation of the town of Sullyton Police Department and or Fire Department, and any apparatus, vehicles, or equipment of the police and or fire department. A, 1, the official department flag if adopted. And then C, for any town of Sullyton owned property serving as an official school, 1, the official school flag, or 2, on the interior of school buildings, the display of the official country flag of other sovereign nations with the approval of the school's principal. And finally, the flying of flags on Sullyton property must be done in accordance with proper flag flying etiquette as outlined by the American Legion or U.S. government.
Thank you, Attorney Riccadone. For the moving forward on the discussion on this, members of the council, we're going to have our time for debate and discussion later on. So just so that we're all understanding, this is the public's time to come and to speak to this ordinance. I'm going to ask that anyone speaking against this ordinance would come to the podium and give your name and address, and we're here to listen. And then after you're finished, we will bring up those who wish to speak against, in favor of this ordinance. So having said that, we're taking comment for those that are opposed to this ordinance. You may come and give your name and address, please.
Good evening, Chris Robertson, 47 Coles Avenue, Plantsville, Connecticut, former fire commissioner, been a politician since I was 19 years old. I've talked to a lot of Republicans and Democrats about this issue because I wanted to get a good feeling of both sides, Democrats, Republicans, males, females, different organizations. I will agree with you that we shouldn't be flying all kinds of flags all over the town of Southington. I'll agree with you. You know, we don't need flags, you know, in our parks or anything. The American flag, the town flag. However, we do need representation on different organizations. So talking to a lot of people, we have a beautiful building right here that we could have the American flag in the center. We could have 3 flag poles to the right, 3 flag poles to the left. You see how many people are in favor for different flags, whether it's the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, many flags, the Ukrainian flag, whoever. There's many flags, many organizations, the Italian flag. Everybody has the right to express themselves with a flag. So this is my proposal as a taxpayer, not as a politician, not as a former fire commissioner, but as a father, as an uncle, as a brother, as friends. I know all of you. I don't think there's one of you I don't know. One of you I haven't talked to. Here's my proposal. When it comes to common sense, I could give you 4 ordinances that you should be working on. Flags isn't one of them, guys. Okay, flags isn't one of them. I can go public safety. But here's my proposal tonight to all of you, my friends, because I consider every one of you a friend. Put the American flag right up here. Put 3 and 3. Have each person who wants to raise a flag go to the town clerk's office, fill out an application, and say, I want to fly my flag for 1 month. 1 month. The Italians, the Polish, whoever. Fly it for 1 month. And maybe have a fee. You want to fly a flag? $50, whatever it is. But everybody can be represented because this building represents not Democrats, not Republicans, not independents, all of you. We are all United States citizens. Forget the D's, forget the R's. Seen me at some of your golf tournaments, the Republicans. You know I've been a Democrat for many years. Let's be citizens of Southington. Let's represent everyone. That's the fair way. And I want all of you to really think about this ordinance. Because I've talked to over 70 people who are very passionate. And many of you know that I'm passionate about a lot of things in this town, but I think these people all here coming tonight, that's a fair way to do it. The American flag, and then each person every month coming to the town clerks and says, I would like to fly my flag. One area, not all areas, not over in Mark's building, not over in the parks. Give them one building. This building right here. We can raise the money. If we don't have the money for the 6 flagpoles, I'll go out and I'll get you the money for the 6 flagpoles. I have enough businesses, I can raise that money in 2 weeks. Okay? But let's do it right. These people deserve it. These people are the ones who voted for you. But to have an ordinance about a flag? Come on, there's more serious problems than a flag. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Think about it hard, because these people are going to vote for you in the next election. These people deserve to raise their flag. A lot of their organizations are important to them. There's certain organizations that are important to me, and there's not one of you. We might had our problems in the past. We might argued in the past, but there is not one of you that I don't respect. And I think this council is finally strong. I think you're good leaders, but we need to look at this and look at it more serious.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Let's just try to keep it within 5 minutes, please, if we can. Thank you. Who's next? Hi, Mitchell.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Mitchell Oliva. I live at 143 Washington Drive. I know I've spoken before in front of the council. I'm the chairman of Southington Pride. We're very excited about our 2022 celebration that's coming up. We're going to be starting that on May 5th. I know a lot of people are here tonight and they're going to do a great job of speaking, and I don't want to take too much time, but there are 2 things that I do want to talk about in regard to the ordinance. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the effect that it has not only on our community, but especially on youth. Right now, a buzzword in our culture is parents' choice or parental choice. And there is a group of parents that we work with that don't get the parental choice. And that is the parents of the LGBT kids. That is the parents of the kids who are getting bullied at school. That is the kids of the parents that are trying to get them resources and services to help them. And I don't think that this argument is necessarily an argument about which organization should be able to put up a flag, which organization should not be able to put up a flag. I think this argument is about the direction that we want to go as a town. I know somebody had mentioned earlier that we have a mental health crisis that is continuing to deteriorate in our country. We have youth that are continually showing that they need our help and they need our support. And when actions like these happen, it's just another sign to youth that they're not able to be there. And I can tell you that as a child growing up, there were many times I'd turn on the TV or see on Twitter and see politicians either creating legislation or creating new things. And the argument was always, it's not political, it's not political. And it is to some of these kids. It's not even just political, it's personal. And my main thing that I want to say tonight is I hope that there is an application process that comes through. If an application process does not come through, there is one message that I do want to say out to the council, and that is to the dads on the council. I actually went to school at St. Thomas with Val's son, so, but I want to speak to you guys because I'm very fortunate to have had an amazing father. My dad was somebody who was kind, who was caring. He taught every single one of us exactly that everybody in this world, no matter how different they are, you're never below that person. That person is never above or below you. And there were many times in my childhood where I would go to school, and there were times that I was shoved down the stairs. There were times that I was spit in the face. There were times that kids took off the uniform belt at the school I went to and hit me on the bus. And I was very fortunate because while I didn't feel loved and accepted at school, I felt loved and accepted at home. And the reason I mention this to the dads tonight is because no matter what the ordinance is going to happen, whether it passes or doesn't pass, it's going to be in the news. It's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be talked about. And it's one of those things that stays out there permanently forever. And I ask that when and if your children ask, why did you either vote for or against? The number one thing that you mention and communicate to them is that there is nothing wrong with being LGBTQ. You are not a sinful person. You are not a perverted person. You are not not in the likeness and image of God. One of the things that we're very fortunate about in Southington is we have 4 open and affirming churches that continuously show that everybody is deserving of love. And I've been watching and monitoring the conversation on different groups online. And I know I've talked about social media before. I hate social media. I think it's terrible. But at the same time, we ain't getting rid of it. But I think it's really important that when we leave this meeting tonight, we make sure that in any way possible, we communicate to the youth of Southington that they are here, they are safe, and that we care about them. And that there is no political party, there is no donor, there is no organization that can come in the way of our commitment to making sure that youth in Southington and youth in our community have the resources they need. And I hope that this is not the end of the conversation. I hope that, the flag ordinance is, not going to be a situation where it gets passed and then we don't talk about anything anymore, or we don't talk about the issues that are happening in the community. We have a ton of people here tonight that are here to speak and are here to raise their voices and share their perspectives. And for many of us, we've lived this. And for those that are watching out there, if it passes tonight, it's okay. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. Southington Pride will be here May 5th to June 22nd, and we're going to have a great time. So I want to thank you so much for the time to get to speak tonight, and I look forward to hearing everybody else. And that includes people that are for and against. I think it's really important in a public forum that we have the ability to be able to speak. And I think that as a community, when we're able to really speak and understand where we stand on issues, we're able to look at each other as people and not necessarily as a political party or a political view next to our name. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Mitchell. Who's next, please?
Dawn Gambasini, 239 Hitchcock Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I agree with the first speaker that this ordinance is not called for. I, by some fluke, found out about the Pride flag raising last year and was able to attend the ceremony and the performances and the speakers, and it was a beautiful event. And if you had seen it, and if you had seen the joy in everyone's faces, you might not be thinking that you need to prevent a flag from being flown. People felt validated. People gathered and felt community. And I think that's what Southington should represent, not the divisiveness of an unnecessary ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, please come. Yeah, we'll wait for you. Sure.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Susan Skripik. Forgive my voice. I live at 75 Old State Road here in Southington. I was born here. And normally I'm proud to say that I live in the city of progress. But it boggles my mind when we think we need an ordinance. I don't represent anyone except for the citizens of Southington. It doesn't matter what flag we choose. I think there's room enough in this town for all. And it doesn't make any difference to me whether, and I'm Polish and I'm German, and it doesn't matter, at least to me, what we are, what we dress like, what our ethnicity is, or any of the others. It's a statement to me that we can say there's room enough in this town for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Yes, could you come could you come forward? Thank you, Alex. Alex is going to help you with the microphone.
She can stay right there.
Or you can just stay right wherever you are.
Oh, they're on.
Okay.
My name is Christine Durant, and contrary to every facility in town, I do live at 14 Taylor Lane, Southington, Connecticut. And I agree with the first gentleman. I think we have much better things to do with our time than using the war in Ukraine to take a stand against certain flags in town. And it seems to me if you support vets, one of the things you could focus on is the inaccessibility of this town. Because they're coming back like I am. Let's not waste any more time.
Thank you for coming.
Good evening. My name is Haley Ward, but I go by Kat. I live at 68 Knollwood Road. I apologize. I'm very bad at speaking off the fly, so I do have my speech on my phone. I apologize. Southington has an LGBTQIA plus community. There is no doubt about that. Over the last few months, we have heard a lot of residents who have stepped up to this lectern, who have to share why they why they think it's vital to be able to fly our flag and recognize the LGBTQIA plus community. This flag is a symbol of progress, solidarity, inclusion, and acceptance. It is a symbol of a safe space, a symbol of allyship. I've said this before, Pride is not a political movement. Pride is a celebration for everybody, for differences and similarities among every individual. By comparing the pride flag to other controversial flags in order to illegitimize its importance, you are invalidating the identities of so many people within the community. This has a huge impact on so many people, including the youth of the town, our most vulnerable group, who are looking at this town's decisions every step of the way. By preventing Southington Pride from flying the pride flag, we are teaching those children that this town is not a safe space. I'd like to think that this town is taking steps so that its youth and all of its citizens feel like they are home. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Effie Mutajanis, 53 Rustic Oak Drive. I am supportive of the LGBTQ flag being flown on town property. I think I've spoken at every town council meeting and ordinance committee meeting in opposition of the ordinance change. There are much more pressing issues in town, including roads, schools, public safety, fire department, many more things that are more pressing instead of changing this ordinance. So I'm in I want commemorative and organizational flags to be flown on town property. Allow that to continue. I feel like I'm affected basically by all the flags that have been flown in the town. I'm Greek. I'm an LGBTQ ally. I support Ukraine. I'm a nurse, and I'm an organ donor on my driver's license. So I think that covers basically the handful of flags that have ever been flown. So, I'm personally affected. So this is more, there's a lot of new faces here, and I'm sort of a new face. Like, I've been coming to these things for a year. So this is more like an encouragement to people to be involved in their town government. You have a voice. Vote. Show up to these meetings. Write to the town council. You need to be heard as well. So the handling of this proposed ordinance, in my opinion, has been severely forced through and sloppy from the very beginning. And no answer has been put forth as to why it's so urgently needed. The ordinance was first introduced in February, and it was literally 2 sentences. That proposed ordinance didn't even include the armed forces flag. It was POW, town, state, and U.S. flag, and U.S. flag at the top, obviously. So that there was no intention at that point to bring it to the ordinance committee for review. It was just presented as, we're going to vote on this, 2 sentences. And the chairwoman had discussions the month prior with the town attorney. The minority council members had no idea that was occurring. This is according to the minutes of the town council, accessible online. The proposed ordinance only went to the ordinance committee and was revised and rewritten after that February council meeting, largely due to the questions raised by the minority councilors, DiPaolo, Palmieri, and Perry. And to me, it seemed just very thrown together. And even the current ordinance, there's no definitions of anything. What's a flag? There's no legal definitions in the ordinance itself. So to me, a decision was made by the majority councilors prior to this review even beginning. And I feel like the ordinance was reverse engineered to have a desired outcome using specifically Berlin and Tolland's new restrictive policies. And I don't feel at any point any serious consideration was given to what other towns have implemented for their processes and guidelines. So frankly, to me, this has been kind of a farce, a facade. This review process has not really been a review at all. I've been to the town council and ordinance committee meetings. I can say, in my opinion, there's been no good faith to review the ordinance or consult with other towns on their flag policies to see how they navigate these requests and the processes that they've put in place. An example would be using a secondary flag pole to have these commemorative and organizational flags flown. Example, towns of Manchester and South Windsor have flag policies with formal requests and actual definitions of what types of flags can be raised. The Manchester town attorney actually issued his own legal opinion as well, stating that Walker versus Texas Supreme Court case would provide protection of government speech to protect against litigation. I don't know if that was ever discussed. Doesn't seem like it. So again, it's my understanding the town received 4 or 5 flag requests historically and has only had a handful of other requests. So it's very hard for me to believe that there's an overwhelming demand on the council and town manager in handling these requests. And I believe in one of the town council meetings, it was said that the change would be equitable to all, but I don't see how limiting civic engagement and representation of our residents is equitable to all. That does not seem like a neutral position to me at all. The ordinance change seems to pick up steam only after Southington Pride made their request for flag raising. The town has had flag raisings for decades to acknowledge and show support to our community members. The change appears to be in response to the opposition to Pride and the LGBTQ community. And I honestly would appreciate more transparency about that instead of sort of disingenuous political talk about why we can't raise flags in town. So I can tell you, speaking to other people in Southington, the fact that this has become such a politicized issue is why many people don't think they can get involved with town government and why many feel they are underrepresented. They either have no idea these partisan things are happening or they feel resigned to the fact that these things will just move forward without their input and opinion. And one of the people I talked to just literally just stated, it's just so sad. And I tend to agree. So I can assure you that I'm in the future going to do everything I can to talk to people in town and make sure they know that they can come and speak and let their voices be heard. And I will be here to do that.
Who's next, please?
Hello again. Sean Slight, 50 Knowles Avenue. This ordinance, and it's kind of been mentioned before, it's to me, it's a solution in search of a problem. Obviously, it's pretty unique in Connecticut. This is, I believe, the second time the news has been covering our particular ordinance. And I asked myself why. I've been told that, there's a Supreme Court case going on that has to do with this, and it's to avoid possible lawsuits against the town. But why is it only our town? I asked myself, my neighbors I talk to all the time, we don't agree on everything, politics or a lot of things. I don't necessarily feel they're more litigious than my neighbors in past towns I've lived in. So why is this? Why is the town council so afraid of being sued about this and nothing else, apparently? Well, it's been mentioned possibly why there was a request to raise the pride flag again, and then this this ordinance seemed to be introduced directly around that time, right after. I'm for the pride flag. I'm for the Ukrainian flag, the Greek flag, the Irish flag, the Italian flag. I think more free speech is better, not less. I think more representation is better and not less. I don't think our town government should be passing laws or ordinances solely because they're afraid to get sued. I'm sure the town has been sued in the past, and I'd love to know what rules have been changed to address that. But also, as it's been mentioned before, what is the fear of creating a process? As it's been mentioned, other towns have a process, and there is a Supreme Court case right now that has not been ruled on yet. So why is it being done now instead of after that Supreme Court case, after it's been ruled on, so that there is actually clear legal precedence for the town council to make a policy in which to address raising flags in town? I don't have the answer to that. I don't know why this is happening right now. I have my thoughts, but I don't know why for sure. The only other thing I could think of is you are the elected members of the town council. You are representing the town. Do you not trust in your own abilities to accurately represent the town in choosing the flags to fly, or in choosing the rules, setting the rules to choose what flags to fly, rather than just completely limiting it from now forward? And if you don't trust yourselves in that, then why are you representing us as a town? Thank you.
Good evening, Jolene Masali, 209 Hilltop Drive. I'm here to talk about the ordinance for the flags. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a proud daughter of a U.S. Army reservist. I'm a proud granddaughter of a major in the U.S. Army. He served in Korea and he served in Vietnam as a CID officer at the end of his career. I'm a proud mom of a trans son. I hope that there is room in our town that we can represent everybody. I feel like our town is big enough, and I feel like we have the resources that we can consider, instead of a ban, being able to fly flags that represent everybody in this committee, in this community. When we had the pandemic happening in the beginning, I was so happy seeing the nurses flag. It gave me a lot of hope every day as I was going into work. I was one of those people that didn't get the time off. I worked all through the pandemic, and seeing that nursing flag was incredibly uplifting. We have enough room in this town to make room for the American flag, for the POW flag, all of our military branches, for the pride flag, for the Ukrainian flag, for the nursing flag. And I implore you to please reconsider. I don't think a ban is necessary. I think that there's so many other opportunities where we can represent everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolene. Who's next?
Excuse me. My name is Regina Coviello again, and I live at 12 Beecher Street. And before I even say anything, I just want to say that I'm happy with coming up here for the first time. This is like the second time I've been up here in front of you. Born and raised here, 56 years old, but the town was different when I was younger. It's kind of, you didn't want to talk because you're afraid to see what might happen. Okay. But now I'm up here for our children, our grandchildren, the future kids. Okay. So I'm here to support not only Southington Pride, but our whole community. This community has to open up their minds and their hearts. We have to be there for each other. Our town officials, they need to really start listening to the people of the town. You also have to leave your political parties out of this and work together as for everyone. Stop dismissing or putting things off. You're not here for yourself, you're here for us. You are to represent the community. Our children, grandchildren, and family members, they need to feel safe and be who they are. Our sexual orientation is not a choice. It is who we are born to be. We must support and have respect for everyone. Everyone needs to be able to come out and feel free and safe doing so. For those of you who have said mean things at these meetings and on social media, it's very disrespectful. For those of you who have brought religion and God into this, I say, what religion? Which God? God is there for everyone, and he wouldn't want anyone being hurtful towards another person. I ask you to open up your hearts and be kind to everyone, and that's everyone in our community. Please support the Southington Pride flag and our whole community. This flag represents is a reputation of that support for our children. And when I wrote this, before I could read this, I had my granddaughter look at it, okay? Because I wanted her approval first, and she approved of this, okay? But we have to think about our children. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Anyone next? Here we go.
Hi there.
Tom.
Tom Catricala, 204 Stonegate. Sorry in advance about the voice. I just wanted to say that this originally started back in February. I think since then, the genesis of this ordinance has kind of been blown apart. And I just got to say, it blows me away that 6 Republicans on this council are still pretending like this is not about supporting the LGBTQ plus community in Southington. Please at least be honest, because I've been in the ordinance commissions, I've been at town council, and every time someone brings something up like the Ukraine flag or the POW flag, it's okay, we'll carve out an exception. Anything to get rid of the pride flag from being flown. It happened again recently when somebody brought up that flags in the school. This would conflict with different country flags going into school and all flags going on in school because it's town property. And again, we carved out another exception just for the schools. So again, it kind of baffles me that we're still pretending that this isn't about pride, because I think everybody here in Southington knows the truth about why you're doing this. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. This is just for those that are against right now. Yeah, so if you're against the written ordinance, then you can speak at this time. Others will speak later.
Good evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts. My name is Lindsay Jones, and I work for the YWCA Sexual Assault Crisis Service, which receives funding from the United Way of Southington to provide services for survivors of sexual violence, as well as education.
Did you say your address? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I live in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and I work for an agency that works at Southington.
Okay, but your residence is Wethersfield, is that
Yes.
correct? I'm afraid that this is for Southington residents only.
Okay, well, I thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Madam Chair, I thought it's allowed taxpayers too, based on
Excuse me, I'm looking at the town attorney.
Taxpayers as well.
And taxpayers, are you paying taxes in town? No.
We're a nonprofit.
No, but in your own are you
No.
a taxpayer in
No.
Southington? So I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Good luck, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Someone else.
Hi, Alicia.
Hello again. My name is Alicia Novi. I live at 41 Hill Street in Southington, and I very much am a taxpayer in this town. So I would like to raise some of the same points I've raised before. I'm going to focus mostly on legal arguments. I feel that this ordinance is a ban. There is no process. And during the ordinance committee meetings, they did not discuss a procedure for displaying flags. It was a ban because there is only, you can display these flags and you can't display these flags. A process would have meant a way to display your flag, meaning you start with an application. We review that. Maybe we agree to it, maybe we don't. And you either display the flag or you don't, but there is no process here. And I believe one of the ordinance committee members said, well, we're setting up a process. That's what we're doing in this ordinance. I don't know. I practice law. I wouldn't call this a process. This was a ban. Secondly, it's very broad in that it includes inside of schools, but no other town buildings. Why do we feel the need to police the inside of schools, but no other town building? I could bring a pride flag and put it over there according to your ordinance, but I can't put it in a school. There's no explanation as to why we need to police the interior of schools and the exterior of all other town buildings. Why is every other town building excluded from this ordinance except for schools? That was never explained in any of the meeting. And then another thing I'd like to cover is that I believe it was the town attorney who stated at one point, if you take your flag, your flag that you bring as a private citizen, and you stick it into the ground on town property, it becomes commercial speech. Practice law for a little while. At what point does commercial speech become the private act of someone taking a flag and putting it into government property? They are not a business entity. They're not promoting something that they would like to sell to you. I'm pretty sure that would not fall under commercial speech at any point. So there were a lot of misspeakings happening there. At one point, somebody tried to use the definition of the word in the definition of the word. That is a no-no in statute writing and ordinance writing. You shouldn't do that, and that was asked to happen at the ordinance committee meeting. And then you realize that at one point, if a school didn't have a flag, the day the ordinance took effect, they couldn't have a flag. So you carved out an exception so that schools could make a flag, but you won't allow anything else to be flown. So you keep making it broad and really, really unnecessarily narrow in certain aspects. And then again, you've been basing this on a case, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, that has not been decided yet. In fact, the day you brought this ordinance out and you gave out the article about a case that was before the Supreme Court, it actually hadn't been heard yet. You were basing it off a case that was still waiting to be heard. And there's no ruling yet. I can't quote this case. There is no actual decision for this. So you're basing it off a hypothetical. At this point, your ordinance, it may fail, because if this case doesn't come out the way you want, and you're basing it off this case being decided in a certain way, are you going to look at us all and say, we're sorry, we made an ordinance based off a case that didn't come out the way we wanted it to? Things to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next? Come on, Walter.
Walter Grover, 2118 Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Marion. Here I am trying to get away from politics, yet I keep coming back here, and it's for a very unfortunate reason. After working 13 hours today, I just wanted to have dinner, but again, I'm here, and I have to fight for what I believe in. I've never been more disappointed in my town than today. What a shadow over Southington. This is so upsetting. I am against and I'm going to be a realist, the anti-pride flag ordinance, because that's what it really is about. This came about 1 week after we wanted to have the flag raised for a second year. And I have to believe that our Republican majority, in which I know all of you, I know some of you for decades, are trying to appease a very small minority of very right-wing religious folks who have differing opinions. And God bless this country. We can have our different opinions, but really at the end of the day, the community, all communities should show support and represent and love one another, whether we understand each other, whether we fully get why people are the way they are. The LGBTQ community, QIA++, we keep adding letters, we keep including everyone. You know, this group, the Southington Pride group, and most of you know I've served on probably over a dozen committees. I've been elected to office. I've been a Republican leadership, Democrat leadership. This has been probably the group where I've been the most proud to serve with. Just such a good group of people, no egos, no drama, just people looking to serve for the betterment of our town and for our state and really for anyone, all voices. So, you know, it's unfortunate now people are painting the 6 Republicans, well, they're homophobic, they're this. Councilman Del Santo, in 1998, I came out to you as a gay Republican, and you asked me, are you happy? And I said, yes. And you basically said, F what everyone else thinks. If you're happy, you're happy. Love is love. Chairwoman Triano, I've known you. I worked on your re-election in 1993, just as a young 16-year-old. You've always been supportive of me. You've never judged me. So I am just dumbfounded, baffled to why this is at this point where I know it's going to be a 6-3 vote tonight. I know once this was recommended back in February, this is how the vote was going to lie. But I have to be here. I have to say, this is just, you're on the wrong side of history. And I don't know what the true intentions are, if you're trying to appease that small group of people who are very supportive to Republicans. This ordinance, there is no issue. And I think we all know there is no issue. Look at how many flags we've rose. I mean, in what, the last 50, 60 years? There's been a few, 5 or 6. I mean, it's the Apple Harvest flag, is that... From when I was a kid, is that controversial? Is it the Greek flag? Is even the Ukrainian flag? But this just came about 1 week after we wanted to raise our pride flag for a second year in a row. So it is what it is. It's unfortunate. It makes the 6 of you look really bad, even though I know in my heart of hearts, you're decent people. So that's all I have to say. I'm just really disappointed. So hope you would reconsider, but I get the feeling that this is a 6-3 vote, and it is what it is. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Walter.
Hello. Do you hear me fine? I guess.
Yes.
Hi, Bradley Lagna, 78 Dawn Lane. I'm just going to speak from the heart, but I'm highly emotional, so we'll be on this journey together. So I was born and raised in Southington, and I love this town. I am so grateful that I got to grow up here. I am a gay man, and I always knew I was different. Probably around 8th or 9th grade, I realized that I was gay, but I was just so ashamed of it, and I was so embarrassed. Sorry. I apologize.
Doing fine. You're doing fine.
Very sorry. I've never done something like this, but this topic means a lot to me, so I just wanted to speak. When I realized that I was gay at a younger age, I did everything I could to push it away and hide it and pretend that this was not me. And I ended up coming out to my mother 2 days before leaving for college. That was my safety plan. I said, if my parents disown me, if they will not love me from me, at least I have an escape. And if they kick me out the house, whatever the case is, I can be somewhere else. I guess something that I think about that's not lost on me is wondering how different childhood could have been. Because again, I came out a few months before my 18th birthday, so I spent my entire childhood being someone else, which is something I'm still coping with to this day. And I think if there was any sign of acceptance in my family or in the school system or the community, maybe I would have felt more safe or comfortable to come out and be the true me. And because I never got to do this as a kid, I would like to do this now and show that I am proud of who I am. And I'm not afraid to hide it anymore, be someone else. And I always think about how if I saw this as a kid, but maybe not a headband, but if I saw the flag at the town green or displayed in a school somewhere, maybe it could have saved my childhood and I could have been who I always wanted to be a lot sooner. And anyone in the room who's listening to this or anyone who hears this, if you are struggling, sorry. I apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry. To anyone in the room or hearing this who's struggling, for every one person who may not accept you, there's 100 people who will. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. So much. Anyone else?
Linda Glass, 14 Taylor Lane. You've set out very specific flags that can be displayed in this ordinance. So you said that these things or these groups and only these groups can be represented on town property. I can see in the future someone saying, okay, therefore, we need to remove everything on town property that does not conform to these groups, including Christopher Columbus, including any statues to anything not involved in the armed forces, including the apples from Apple Harvest Festival. I think you need to be very careful what you put into and codify in the laws and regulations of Southington, because once you set a precedent like this, you're setting a precedent for all of the displays in Southington. And limiting it to just these select few, and only these select few, opens you up to then you need to limit every display of every kind on every bit of municipal property in the town of Southington to only those groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right.
Just real quick, is there going to be another opportunity for general public comments, or is this it?
Yes.
There's okay.
There it is.
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. I guess I just have to say, I've heard people come here, speak passionately, seriously, and perhaps more importantly, sincerely about being opposed to this ban that you guys want to go forwards with. But I have not seen that from people who really want this. So it's just, and I've lived in this town for 23 years. I went to the schools here, and I have seen people, I have seen the LGBTQ plus community be treated cruelly in this town. So I don't think it's a bad idea to fly a pride flag every year just to say, you're a part of this town too. I don't think it requires that much effort. I really don't. That's how I feel. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor, in opposition to this ordinance?
Second time tonight, but John Moyes, 238 Stonegate Road again. Haven't changed my address yet. So, good evening again. I've been debating about talking or not talking about this flag ordinance for the last couple of days. I've been following this ordinance closely and I've been researching flag ordinances across this country. There's two sides to this debate, obviously. You guys have talked about this. We've heard this on all sides. The good flags, the bad flags. Where do we choose from? So there has been so much to be said on both sides of this debate. There's good intentions of support for another country, whether it be the Ukrainian flag during this god-awful war that we see every day. People dying. You guys did a great job getting supplies to them and greatly appreciated in the town. And we have to continue on that vein too. We have the Greek flag that has been raised without fanfare for over many, many years. And John Weichel's, the former town manager's request. The good intentions of support for another country, again, whether it be the Ukrainian flag during this god-awful war or the Greek flag, has been raised without fanfare over the years. There's been a nurse's flag last year, a pride flag that was raised with no public outcry. However, there were many, many nasty comments on the Facebook pages and all, and the anti-pride groups that are the silent majority. This is a shame that there's so much negative sentiment in our town for a simple request to fly a flag to support those who need support the most. Editorials have been written in the Record Journal asking the council to let the Ukrainian flag fly in support. I read in a news article, flying a flag does nothing for the Ukrainians. Couldn't be further from the truth. We have residents of Ukrainian descent in Southington. And watching the news shows and those in Ukraine who are being interviewed, they are overwhelmed by the American support of flags, outfits in yellow and blue, even the Ukrainian national flower. This gives them the drive to succeed. The story has reached our town of Southington of the Ukrainian elderly lady who passes out sunflower seeds to Russian soldiers to put in their pockets so when they die, something good will grow from them. What happens anywhere reaches everyone in this global world we live in. It's not just about tiny Southington. We were on the Olympics on the Olympics. We were talked about on that. That's Southington. But no, nothing ever happens in Southington National. The good things happen. So we are known. This ordinance will have unintended consequences, and the council should understand the ramifications of this. I do expect, since this is a public hearing, not unlike the budget public hearing, that each one of you will digest and research what is said tonight and vote on this meeting, not tonight, but at the next meeting. Otherwise, if you vote on this tonight, it will be apparent your minds are already made up and this is all for show. Let me just say, the history of Southington, we have always been inclusive. This is more of an issue for the pride flag that some have taken issue with. I hope this council does not buy into the hysteria and anti-gay sentiments of the Floridians we have seen with their passage of anti-gay laws. This is Southington, and we are better than this. Stop this and fly the different flags to support our residents and Ukraine. The irony in this meeting being held tonight in this building named in honor of the former town manager, John Weichel. He took pride in many things, I am sure. None more than raising the Greece flag every April. Sadly, that will be no more with this ordinance. Let me say the ordinance was pushed through a committee with no agreement on process. I know this can't be the Wild West where there has to be parameters and time limits. There needs to be justification as to why the flag should be flown. We can't be stiff. We need to be flexible. At the end of the day, Southington is better than this ordinance portrays. We've seen this in the last 2 weeks. What's happened in our town, where these fools, these neo-Nazis and these white supremacists come up to our town and put their garbage out on our streets. The police department and the residents handled that the right way. And we're very proud of our police department. We're very proud of our town for how they handled this. It's not a big show, and it shouldn't be a big show, because that's what they want. And I appreciate that of our town, because we are inclusive. Southington stands up for hate, as our residents and police department have, without fanfare. We need to listen to all residents, not just a few who have the council's ear. Look at the South Windsor ordinance. They have a separate location, as Mr. Robertson has said, on town property for raising flags. It is perfect, and it has guidelines to ensure flags are raised properly. Why can't we do something like that? In our town, we have had 6 documented requests that we know of. 6. Not like in Boston where they have 400 or more. At the next meeting, after digesting all the speakers, then vote on this ordinance. But please, give it the due time that it deserves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Any more people? Anyone else now? Thank you.
Caitlin Gelfand, 51 Cloverdale Road in Southington. I am the mother of a 5-year-old boy that wears dresses and makeup, and he draws rainbows and paints with glitter. And I do not want to live in a town that shuts him down. The worst thing that our city of progress could do is force him to change himself to be accepted here. We just heard from Bradley, who lived 18 years of his life forcing himself to be a different person. Why would we continue that? Why would we put that on our kids that are still here and already under attack with our budgets and our losing everything? If this is one thing we can do for them by not doing something, why would any of you stand in the way of that? It's baffling. It's been studied over and over again that acceptance and support saves lives of children in the LGBTQIA community. Why don't you want to be a part of that?
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to ask those now that are in favor of this. Would you please come, give your name and address and speak, please.
I am John Walker from 44 Tanglewood Drive. I was eating dinner at 6 o'clock, and I saw on Channel 3 News, they said that there was something about the flag being voted on tonight or talked about tonight. When I drove up here, I asked some people, what are all the balloons for? Is there something going on? I thought maybe I was in the wrong building. And they explained it to me. By the way, I had an uncle that passed away who was gay. I know the pain. I know the suffering. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because someone mentioned the thing called a flag. And to all of you, someone asked just now, why can't we put different flags in schools? Why do the kids do Pledge of Allegiance? Can I tell you why Pledge of Allegiance? Because kids today don't understand and respect their country like they used to. The people that are at war right now overseas have guts and fury like all our forefathers had. But the kids today don't seem to get that at home or on the playground. But by golly, when they stand there every day and learn the Pledge of Allegiance, they get it. So first of all, I meant to say thank you all for your time and work that you do. I know it not getting paid for it or anything, but the Pledge of Allegiance thing really hit me. But there's more than that. We've seen fads come and go recently that are unbelievable. Hey, let's tear down statues. Holy cow, New York City tore them all down just about. Let's take down I think it was the Christopher Columbus or some statue in town. Another big fad. And this business of we want our flags, and I had no idea you guys were here, so. But we want our flags, our Irish flag. I'm Swedish. I've never seen a Swedish flag flown in a town. That's okay. I'm an American because my forefathers came here. So I commend all of you for standing up for our flag and for saying enough is enough. This flag symbolizes this pole, this flag is not the United Nations. We don't need 25. If someone wants to put 25 flags on their house or around or something, do it. But when you walk up to the post office, when you see an American flag on a flagpole, it's to remind you of what you folks voted for or want to vote for, that this is a unique country, that the kids have to learn that, and you have to learn the respect for it. Because what's happening is people are getting, I'm not going to say lazy, just not into, they're so into their every day-to-day work, they forget what a beautiful country this is. And sure, there's faults, but guess what? People don't run away from this country. They all want to come here from other countries. So thank you for making this proposal. I do hope you pass it, because this is just like tearing down statues or something else or something else. And people like you are going to have subcommittees of subcommittees of subcommittees down the road. If you keep just letting these fads come up, you have to eventually say, hey, there's a flag, there's a pole, there's this, there's that, but enough is enough. You have the right to walk up and down Main Street with all the flags or signs or whatever, be it lawn mowing week or I don't care. But that's America. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you. Who's next?
Michael Krasansky, 27 Hitching Post Drive. First, I want to thank the town council. I know a lot of the public speaking segments are at the middle of meetings or the end, and you never know when you can come. So I was thinking I would get here and be out of here by now, but I'm not. But at least it was at the beginning of the meeting, so I thank you for that. And if that trend continues, that's a great thing. So that's my personal opinion. I'm here to speak in favor of the Southington Town Flag Ordinance. About what flags can be flown at government buildings in town. Allowing other flags creates controversy and division in town, which is not beneficial to residents. Special interest groups will jockey for position to get their flags flown. There are always two sides to every issue and every flag. Someone is always going to be aggrieved by a decision about what flags can be flown. Some will find certain flags offensive and will believe that the town tacitly backs those causes by allowing the flags to be flown. I'll give an example a little later. Where do you draw the line about which flags are allowed and which are not? Who is to decide which flags are more important than others? What about religious flags and separation of church and state? Can I have a flag for the Catholic Church flown at the municipal center? How long will other flags be allowed to be flown, and what is the logic behind that? Do some flags get more time than others? If so, why? How many flags can be flown at once and why? Groups whose flags are voted down will bear ill will to the town, which is a negative. Flag decisions or votes will waste valuable town council time and resources on each flag proposal. The decisions will also unnecessarily divide the town council on social issues that are not pertinent to normal town council purview. Politicians will use flag decisions to virtue signal and create wedges rather than focus on important town issues at hand, like the budget that was talked about earlier. We need less government intervention in our lives, not more. You can fly whatever flag you want at your home. So there's your answer. And just a little allegory. I'm, for the Ukrainian people, and, that's a great thing, what's going on in the support. But I was at a party the other day, and I know a lot of Polish people in town. And one of the guys I was talking to said, you know what? I'm for the Ukrainians, but, guess what happened in the past? Ukrainians slaughtered my grandparents. They killed them. So is he anti-Ukrainian? No, but you have to understand, anytime you say, okay, well, there's this one issue that everyone is for, right? Maybe that he has something against that, and it's like, wow, they're showing this Ukrainian flag at town hall. Ukrainians killed my grandparents. I'm not anti-Ukraine. I'm just saying, as a simple example, not everything is black and white and cut and dry. There's two sides to every story. So when you start getting into this flag business, some people are going to be upset on one side or the other. And I think it's going to create and will create more division, more problems. And I think it'll draw the focus of the town council and government away from important things, in my opinion, like budgets, educating our kids properly, making sure our roads are in good order and all those things. That's the job of the town council. And the job of the town council is not, basically making pointing out how they feel on social issues, right? So in my opinion, that's not where their purview is, and that's not where they should be weighing in, and they shouldn't be making decisions on that. So again, in summary, anyone wants to fly a flag at their house, that's great. Fly whatever flag you want. I don't care what it is. I'm a big advocate of freedom of speech. But at town, properties, yeah, the Southington flag, the state flag, and the American flag. And I'm not going to go into all the, the military flags, the Marines and all that. I don't have a particular stance on that, but I'm a big proponent of this ordinance. So thank you for creating it.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzansky. Anyone else?
That's okay. Colleen Dubkowski, 363 Mulberry Street. Oh, I just had a nice yoga class, decided to have some dinner, started watching. I'm like, why is this happening? I'm just going to say that I am a true believer in the First Amendment. If you start to get to know me, I'm a true believer in rights for people. I love the display of your First Amendment. That's great. Isn't that great that we get to have this? But you need to remember the reason why you also get to have this is because people fought in honor of that flag. That flag already includes you. You're already included in that flag. That belongs to you. Anybody want to have coffee with me? I'll have coffee with you. Want to get to know each other? Want to build our community? Anytime. I'll give you my number. I'm actually a lot of fun. So that flag represents you. But we start putting different flags and putting ourselves in different categories. That divides us. That doesn't unite us. There are men, women, gay, lesbian, any way you want to call them, that died for that flag to honor every person in this room. Trust me, the Ukraine war and everything going on with that scares the bejesus out of me. You know why? My son's in the Navy. And he's there protecting all this rights right now. My husband served 36 years. My father served in the Navy. My family served. This already represents you. You are included. You are. And if you feel that you're not and you need a flag, and I'm sorry, this might sting, if you need a flag to validate who you are.
Excuse me, Colleen.
There's a little bit more going on.
Colleen, I'm sorry. You have to
sorry.
address the council.
Sorry,
please.
I'm addressing the council. I'm addressing everybody. But I really want there to be a unity. If people know me and people know most of the people, get to know the people in the community, get to know their heart. That doesn't happen whether or not this flag or the other. Because I'll tell you, if you get in the argument of different flags, there's going to be other people hurt. And it isn't better to have one united flag and we all fly under that heart of that flag? That's what I want, united. United States of America. All of us are united. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening for the ordinance? Anyone else?
Good evening. Melissa Holgren, 31 Birchcrest Drive. I just kind of tossed my speech. I had one prepared, but I really listened to everybody here tonight, and I understand. I totally understand, but I don't think that everyone in this room understands. Everyone is making it about them. The people that are opposed, the people that are against. It's not about any of us. It's about what's right. I think Mike was in my head today when I wrote my speech, which is why I just tossed it, because I'm like, it's going to look like we wrote it together. And I think Colleen was in the other side. We are under one, we the people, we're all here. We are all here. We all represent something. We're all passionate about something. If you're passionate about it, put it in your yard. To the parents that are concerned about their children, 1 month out of the year of the town putting that flag, wouldn't your time be so beautifully spent going to your neighbors and saying, hey, you know what? My child is struggling. They're struggling with their identity. They're having a problem right now. Can I put these little flags in your front yard? I would put it in my front yard for a neighbor who asked. Absolutely. I support all of you. It's going into this bubble here, and it's like, oh, you've already decided. And there's a lot of pointing. It's further dividing the basic American flag, united. We're all together. We the people, everybody get together and just be one.
Thank you, Melissa.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Ritchie from Chesterwood Terrace. I'm here to speak about the flag ordinance from a simplistic point of view. I understand that individuals in our community each have causes and organizations close to their hearts, and I believe each should be respected. So how would a town fairly determine which cause or causes is more worthy of a flag? And obviously we can't raise dozens of flags. Inevitably, some causes would be prioritized over others, and some residents would feel as if the causes important to them are inferior. We should consider that there are numerous important causes to our community members, and the most effective way to support them is productively via fundraising, holding events, etc., not symbolically via flags. In addition, flag flying requests would likely become an administrative burden and could also open up the town to potential litigation, as has happened in other parts of the country. I think Southington should continue to raise the American flag and our town flag, under which we all collectively unite. As far as supporting other causes, our community members can explore more constructive ways to promote them to raise awareness and garner support. Perhaps we could consider a wall or bulletin board concept in town to utilize and advertise some of these great causes, which can help bring members of the community together and provide learnings, including how residents can contribute time or monetarily to advance these causes. Doing so would lead to far greater outcomes than simply raising flags as symbolism. I really appreciate Mitch Oliva's message tonight in general, and specifically about how the sun will come up tomorrow regardless of the vote on the flag ordinance. There are many Pride events scheduled in the near future, and there have been several Ukraine collections recently in town. Aren't these events more important and influential than simply flying the respective flags? I feel so encouraged seeing events taking place in our town with various themes, but welcoming all to participate. It's great to see residents come together to celebrate their commonalities and their differences, which is far more meaningful than seeing flags on a flagpole. The positive irony here is that all those who spoke in support of the pride flag tonight had much more of an impact on the community than the flag would. Great job to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the ordinance?
Good evening, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Alex Katanik, 127 Bird Street, unit number 10. And I originally came here tonight in favor of the ordinance. After hearing a number of the people who spoke before me, though, I found myself shifting to a middle ground where I guess I would call myself an undecided, which is why I was trying to gauge when to speak tonight. My primary concern was what this could potentially open the door for. I'm a staunch Democrat, and my main concern was the potential for flags that are from the opposite side of what I think, and that I would probably bristle at if I saw. I was driving through Prospect 2 days ago. If any of you have seen their town hall recently, there's a green in front of the building that is encircled by probably at least 2-3 dozen flags. And needless to say, it's a town political ideology that's much different from mine. It's a veritable shrine to right-wing causes. I'm not necessarily concerned about that being what ends up happening if we went against this ordinance, that we'd start seeing all sorts of flags that I would bristle at personally. But it's just, I think it's something to consider. I don't want to see suddenly flags like "Let's Go Brandon" popping up on town hall or at municipal buildings. I don't want to see flags like Trump 2024, "Take Back America," or "Don't Tread on Me." And so I guess I like the gentleman in the corner here's idea earlier, this notion of 3 flags on each side, for example. I guess if there's just some kind of middle ground where if we can take a little bit more time to think about this matter and we can come to something that's perhaps a little bit more appropriate with some limits, I suppose. My concern is how it's determined what is appropriate as a flag to raise and what is not. And so that was the concern that I want to speak to tonight.
Thank you so much.
Susan Zabahansky, Working Street. That man's comment, I just want to say that I'm in support of this flag ordinance, and not because we want to limit free speech, but because who determines what flag is the right flag to raise? He just made some valid points. Who decides that? One person, 2 persons, everybody stands on a different political spectrum, and our flagpole should not be used for that purpose. Our flagpole should be used for one purpose, and it's not for free speech, because we have that everywhere else. The government is not in the position of supporting any one people group over another. We're supposed to be here for equality. That's what our government stands for, and that's what our flag stands for. Therefore, I'm in support of this ordinance. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you very much. Last call. Anyone else speaking in favor? I want to thank everyone for their time tonight and their words and their consideration. It is 9:15. I suggest we take a 5-minute break or so. We will reconvene in about 5 minutes or so, depending on the line in the ladies' rooms.
So
this evening. It was very good to be able to hear everyone. All right, we're now opening up our regular meeting. Madam Clerk, would you call, are you ready, Attorney?
I'm ready.
Oh, okay, very good. Would you call the roll, please, Madam Clerk?
Christopher Palmieri,
Here.
Jack Perry,
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky,
Here.
Michael Del Santo,
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo,
Here.
William Dietzick,
Here.
Tom Lombardi,
Here.
James Morelli,
Here.
Victoria Triano.
I am here. We're going to stand for the prayer, flag salute, and a moment of silence, please.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening asking for your direction and guidance. Keep us focused tonight on what is best for Southington and her people. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the flag salute? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Going to ask everyone for a moment of silence as we remember the Wolowski family and the loss of their son, Sean. Thank you so much. May I have a motion on the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Val. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes?
Abstain.
Oh, one abstain, one abstention.
I'm gonna abstain.
Oh, long night already, I'm sorry. 2 abstentions. A councilperson's communication. Anybody? Come on. Yep.
Me?
Yes,
Yeah,
please,
okay.
Chris.
A couple things. First of all, I want to thank, too bad Chairman Leary left. I attended the Board of Finance budget workshop, which was last Thursday. I want to thank them for putting that together. That was an opportunity really to start looking at ways to address the cliff.
Yep.
It's my understanding it was discussed there that there's going to be a joint workshop between the town council and the Board of Finance.
I'm not sure that that's going to happen, Chris. That's why it was not, there was talk of that. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the latest is it may not happen.
All right. I mean, I was there. That's why and it was discussed many times. This is the first I'm hearing it's not happening.
Well,
Can you share with me why?
I don't know exactly why, but I know that that there was some mention of it.
Yeah.
And then through conversations, I don't think it's going to go forward with scheduling or whatever. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure. So, maybe we'll confirm it tomorrow.
All right.
All right.
I'd
We'll make
appreciate
sure everybody
that.
knows.
Because again, I think it's good to, talk and address the cliff that's coming so
Sure.
that we're all on the same page, which is what the board was talking about, is bringing the council
Yep.
on board so
Yep.
we're aware. I'd also like to just give a shout out to Cyber Knights, the Cyber Knights team from Southington High School. They ranked 20th out of 180 teams in New England. So the top 25 teams from New England were eligible for the World Championship in Houston, Texas. So Southington qualified as a result of that.
there we go.
Over 450 teams from 13 different countries competed. And Southington was unofficially ranked within the top 30 teams in the world for 2022.
That's
So we
great.
should be very, very
Good,
proud of
yeah.
our Cyber Knights team.
Yeah. Team 195. Anything else, Chris?
That's it.
No. Anybody else have anything?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Joe? Jack, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I first wanted to give a shout out to our Southern Fire Department. On April 14th, my company, I got a call from one of my drivers that one of our trucks actually caught on fire from hot ashes. So this is also a little public service announcement for residents at this time of year with campfires and cleaning out your fire stoves. Don't use your trash receptacle. But again, it just was, as a taxpayer, lifelong resident in Southington, it was just awesome to see Chief Paul show up in the crew. And again, they assisted us in unloading the truck safely to put out the fire and keep all the residents safe and all that. So again, it's just like anything, it kind of goes on the back burner, but you take a lot of that for granted of our first responders. So they did a phenomenal job. With that being said, too, we all got that email from the police department regarding to the neo-Nazi flyers that were, being put around town. And again, the police department stepped up and did the right thing. And obviously, I think us as a council, we denounce that type of behavior in our community. And there's
Absolutely.
no room for that. Our community has no place for hate. So I want to make that very public. That again, that type of behavior, that I don't think any of us on the council appreciates that happening in our community. And that's pretty much it.
Great. Anybody else have anything? Councilman Communications? Yes, go
One
ahead.
thing. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, I mentioned it last meeting, but I was very happy to see that the updates at the transfer station regarding the overhang for the vehicles coming in and the overhang for the town employees is well underway. So thank you to town staff for moving that project forward. I know it's been 2 or 3 years in the works, and then we had some delays. So nice upgrade to our transfer station over on Old Turnpike Road.
Very good. Very good. Paul, you had something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just this evening, there was a note in the Bristol Press that an attendee of the meeting had brought forward, and I wanted to make sure it got announced. For those who haven't seen it yet, there is a police issue for a silver alert for a 14-year-old girl in our community who's missing now for a day or so. Her name is in the article, but I'm not going to mention it here publicly. People can go to the Bristol Press to look for it. A black female, 14 years old, blonde hair, brown eyes, 5'1", 143 pounds, black sweatpants, white t-shirt, denim jacket, white sneakers, and a black backpack. So if you're watching this remotely, please keep your eyes out, and everybody as you're driving home as well, to please keep your eyes peeled for this potential person.
Yeah.
Please call the police if you see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Jim? Sure. Yeah.
While we're on the public service portion of our meeting tonight, I wanted to mention that twice now on Queen Street in the afternoon when buses are dropping kids off at the Denny's area, I've stopped on southbound Route 10 to the dismay of most all the traffic. So I heard horns and fingers because it's the other side of the street. So I did some checking, and I just wanted to mention to the general public that Section 11-705 of the Connecticut State Law says that drivers meeting or overtaking any school bus from either direction must stop before reaching the school bus when the lights are flashing red and actuated. They may proceed when the bus resumes moving or the lights are turned off. Now, those kids get dropped off at Denny's parking lot, so they technically run over to the right and they don't go across the street. However, they're allowed to cross the street, and so the traffic should stop. So,
yes,
little public service announcement for you guys.
Absolutely.
It's a $500 fine if you get a ticket.
Wow. Yeah. Big news. Anybody else? I just have one quick thing.
Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, Val, go
I
ahead.
just have a few. So I just wanted to, just a reminder on the FOI training, so Wednesday, May 25th, here at the Municipal Center, 6:30. And Madam Chair, I didn't know if we...
6:30?
6:30.
6:30.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know if we had made sure to ask that commissions and boards put that on their agenda.
I believe
coming
that
month,
we
so
have.
that-
The notice is, because we're still too far away from it, the notices will go out later this week to put
Okay.
on their meeting agendas for May.
Okay, that'd be great. And I wanted to thank the governor and the staff, his staff.
We saw the picture, yeah.
Yeah, so he came
nice.
to Southington and met with a few of us and had a quick lunch. He's on a tight schedule. But, it was great to have him here and asking about Southington and, what do we need? What can he be doing to help? And so that's always a good thing. I wanted to put in a plug for the Southington Education Foundation, and Gloria's here, but they are having their gala Saturday, right, May 7th, at the back 9.
Yeah.
From 6 to 10. So, that would be great if, if people can get to that. And the last thing is, I just want to, I know it's been mentioned, but Southington Pride is having the Pride Festival. It's starting on May 5th, we'll run through May 22nd. There's about 20 different events that are going to take place, through that time. So I hope people can, go on the southingtonpride.org website, check out some of the events and, hopefully maybe attend.
Yeah, so there were a lot of activities.
There's a lot of things
Yeah,
going
a
on.
lot of stuff.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share one thing. I had the honor of addressing the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association on Thursday. They had their annual meeting at the AquaTurf, and there were, I don't even know, probably about 300 or 400 people maybe that were there, just to welcome them to Southington. And our police department made a great showing, and I just wanted to thank them for the opportunity to welcome them to Southington and offer grace, and that was it. So I wanted to just say thank you. Any other things? Let's move on. Let's go on to reports of special committee. Apple Harvest Festival.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Apple Harvest Committee met on April 13th at 4 p.m. in the Finance Department Conference Room at Town Hall. Piggybacking over Councilwoman DiPaolo's comments there, I did raise the FOI meeting. I notified the other members of the commission that the FOI meeting will be Wednesday, May 25th. It was only 2 days after our last meeting, so I will ask Dave LaPre to add it as a formal written agenda item for the May meeting. Under the festival coordinators report, he has decided and the committee approved bringing back the laser light show this year, which we had in 2020. I believe. And lastly, we did approve the grounds cleaning vendor, which will be Two Owls, which has been our vendor in the past. They did have a price increase this year, so we did go out to bid, and we received another bid that was significantly higher, and Two Owls has done a very good job for the festival. So that is all I had on the festival.
Very good. Chris, do you have anything?
I wasn't at the meeting,
Okay.
sorry.
Very good. I just want to give you the opportunity. Our sewer committee, Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As always, I love following the Apple Harvest, their light shows. We got to discuss a primary sludge building valve installation, which is on our agenda tonight. We also got to discuss underground storage tank. And in addition to our normal updates from town staff, Tony Morrison introduced some pretty interesting, I'm going to call them financial control measures. I don't work in finance. They're going to be on our agenda coming up. They're going to be coming to you guys. So hopefully the night when we present them, Tony, who's probably one of the smartest people I've ever met, he can do a better job than I can. Maybe give him the chance to discuss those when it comes up after our vote.
Very good. Is that it? Any questions for sewer? Okay, let's move on. For the meeting with the chairs, we had our meeting last week, and it was just good to be able to talk about things that we were all doing. And of course, the budget is probably one of our biggest, all of our biggest concerns. And so we had some discussion about that, and it was a pretty quiet meeting. Mark, is there anything else I should add?
Most of it was dominated by the chair of the Board of Finance explaining the budget.
Exactly. It was really focused on the budget. So that's that. I don't know if anybody else has any questions for me. I'd be glad to answer. Item D, Library Building Committee. Jim?
Yes, Madam Chair. On March 1st, we received 11 bids from qualified architects for the new library. And after review, we narrowed it down to 5. Those 5 were interviewed, and after deliberation, the committee recommends that we hire Drumney Rosane Anderson with a lump sum professional service fee of $1,093,500. It is subject to a mutually agreeable architect form of agreement, contract review, basically.
Very good. Any questions for the Library Building Committee?
Yeah, Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I guess my question is that within the budgeted amount of what we have? My concern with the library is obviously going over budget or items going over budget and certain things having to be cut. So I just was curious if that was falling in line with what we projected.
It is part of the total amount of the budget. So it comes off the top. The architect fee comes off the total amount of the budget.
Yeah, but did you guys have a projected amount that you guys were aiming for?
What we had is we had the 5 individuals submit fees. And this, although not the lowest, was certainly not the highest. We felt that this fee was the most reasonable fee based upon the quality of the company.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first thing I have is the Board of Finance minutes. As is obvious, it was dominated by the budget vote. but there's a couple of things that I wish to go over with you. On page 2, we have the revenue side. The town is doing quite well on revenue. We're about 1.1 mil above the budgetary amount, which is good news because obviously when Chairman Larry explained the capital budget of $30+ million, a lot of that is with budget reallocation money, and this is moving toward that budget reallocation money. So hopefully we'll continue to have a budget surplus we can use for that particular purpose. The other item that of consequence is you'll see there's 2 large amounts from the Emergency Management Fund. Emergency Management Fund is your ARA funds. So that is already been approved by the council, but now we're funding it. If you remember correctly, those were 2 contracts, I believe it was at your last meeting. We did for detention ponds, and we also did for basins. So those were the 2 contracts to make sure that our MS4 permit is done correctly. Any questions on the Board of Finance?
Anyone? I don't hear any, so go ahead.
As Chairman Dietzick talked about, there's 2 items from the Sewer Committee. And the first one is a recommendation from Kari Williams, who is our Superintendent of Water Pollution Control. And I wish I could explain to you what a butterfly valve is. I don't know what it is, but it's for 4 butterfly valves for the primary sludge building. And he's recommending, or the committee's recommending Chase Mechanical LLC for the sum of $13,090. I'll answer any questions, assuming I can answer those questions for you.
Any questions?
If not, some of you may remember, I think certainly Chris and Victoria will, that several years ago, we got rid of the pump station over at Stonegate.
Right.
And what we did is we put a gravity line in, which saves the town money by not having a pump station there and not having to maintain the pump station. But what it does, it's still left an underground tank there. It's not a fuel, it's just an underground tank that needs to be removed. So this is the contract to remove that tank. Once again, the superintendent with the committee is recommending the removal of the tank at 142 Stonegate to Martin Lavero Contractors of Bristol for the sum of $21,769. Answer any questions you have with that.
Just a quick, Mark, just back on the, for the valve installation, that's really it's really a safety issue.
What is that?
Well, I'm not sure, I mean, we talked about it, Bill, and the sewer.
It's a
committee,
safety issue for the.
But it's a safety issue for the employees because
Okay.
the worker can, when they're trying to unblock, they can fall in.
Right.
To
They
the,
manually
they were
manually clean it out
trying to
today,
do it.
and the valve allows them to put
Exactly.
water in there instead.
Right, instead of them having to do it.
I was hoping he
You
bailed
don't
out
want
by
them
the sewer
falling
committee.
in.
Thank God.
We
the sewer
definitely don't want them
committee
falling in
bailed
that, especially.
me out. So there's your explanation of what a
Yeah.
butterfly valve is.
Right.
Glad you're here.
And if there's no other questions, Mr.
Yes,
I have a
go
question.
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the storage tank on Stonegate Road, is this an issue that are there more of these issues around town that we should be planning for in the future? And, like with the underground oil tanks, we set them all out for the future and we've been addressing them. Is this something that we should be kind of looking at going forward or?
No, because it only comes from a sewer standpoint. It only comes into vogue when we eliminate a pump station. This was a pump station we eliminated. Remember, we'd also eliminated one on Blatchley, so that was taken care of during the project. But to the best of my knowledge, we don't have any plans to eliminate. In fact, we're going to bid for our pump stations coming up in the next couple of weeks. So that's been handled. And the question is right. We have removed the oil tanks. There's still a couple more that we're moving on the BOE side, but most of those have been removed.
Okay, thank you.
And I do not have executive session for you tonight, Madam Chair.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Mark. Town Attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, the Charter Revision met on April 12th. They had their first scheduled public hearing. There were the 4 charges that this council brought up, and there was a 5th charge brought up that the commission talked about, and that is 4-year staggered terms for the Board of Finance and for the Board of Education. Currently, they're 2-year terms. So that has been added to the debate and discussion. The next meeting is going to be May 10th, where there will be draft provisions of possible changes for discussion and votes. Then a secondary public hearing will be scheduled on May 17th, 2022. Again, everything is open to the public and the public is encouraged to attend and comment.
Any question for the town's attorney?
I have one question.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry, Val, did you have something?
No, go ahead.
Just clarifying on the dates. The next scheduled meeting is when?
May 10th, 2022.
Is there going to be a public hearing that day?
There's not a public hearing, but there's always a built-in public communication.
Okay, so the public hearing you said will be on May 17th.
17th.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to follow up on the dates. Alex, I thought the third date, I thought they had said it was May 25th that the commission would vote. Are
That's
they
the
going to change
4th.
that?
Yeah, no, so that's the 4th date. The next 5/10 is the draft report, discussion and voting on the initial report. May 17th is going to be the public hearing on the draft report.
Right.
May 25th is going to be the final, if it's tweaked between the second public hearing, the final vote, and then it'll be submitted to Clerk Larkin's office for transmittal to all of you.
So the May 25th is the FOI training. Can that date be changed?
What time does that mean? It's at 6.
I mean, I'm assuming they have a meeting on May 10th. They can change their.
Do you know how long the FOI training is going to be, approximately?
I think he had said an hour and a half or so.
Because I can talk to the chairman and see if we can push, at the next meeting, see if we can push it back an hour.
Right, because
Accommodate
there's
both.
time to maybe change that.
I'll bring it up to the commission at the next meeting.
Thank you, Alex.
Absolutely.
Madam
Good
Clerk?
thinking. Yeah. Yes.
So I guess to the town attorney, the draft provisions, how can you explain how those will be formed, the draft?
So at the last meeting after the public hearing, the members dictated to me, I don't want to say vague, but not extremely precise, but they gave me draft language that they wanted to see imposed. So I'm going to take the original charters and, just like on the ordinance you see tonight, craft additions and deletions for their review. And that's just a working copy. And you bring up a great point. I should say that I've also, as of today, sent over the library language to Bank of America, who's the trust officer for the Barnes Trust, because the Barnes trustee has to approve any language or changes to the library setup for the Barnes, because within the trust language, there has to be special control from the library board to the actual Barnes Museum. So that's also something that we had to get out right away for Bank of America's approval and review.
So just to clarify, you will be the attorney for the charter revision? Because I know there was talks about hiring outside counsel for that, but I guess I'm just trying. I had to leave that meeting early. I apologize. I had a conflicting schedule.
There was no,
But we talked about it, I think at one of the council meetings, asking about, again, who would be the attorney for the charter revision.
Yeah.
So I'm the clerk, and I'm also the town attorney for that. There is, I believe at one of these meetings, there was talk about if they were going to do an overview of zoning, they were going to hire an outside counsel to go over like the zoning changes to implement the new State of Connecticut acts and procedures. But as far as the charter review commission, I'm the town attorney who oversees that.
Okay, so you will be the one drafting it. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, we can move on. Public communication, if anyone is here and wishes to address us, you have 5 minutes. We're here to listen if you have an issue. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Victoria. I just want to thank probably the town manager. I would like to thank him and a few others, because I went to our dump this Saturday, and having those poor
Transfer
guys.
station, Chris. You promised me transfer station.
All right, transfer station. I'm sorry. Transfer station. No, on a serious note, having a building for these gentlemen, they do such a great job. And when they have to stand in the rain and get wet, when I saw that, I'm here like, man, did common sense finally come over there? But the one thing, and I have to say, you know what? A lot of you've known me. A few of you say I'm a little loud, a little passionate. You know, we've all had our little fights. But the one thing, again, common sense. There was a police officer. He was loaded up. He was trying to dump. His sticker was expired, and he had to go home. Then I came in, and my sticker was in. I said, Chris, Your sticker's expired, go home. But common sense says take out your wallet, show you have a license, and let me dump. And you know what? Just a little common sense. But that is, my sticker was expired. I took my whole load home, and I'll come back next Saturday. But the structure, unbelievable. Unbelievable. The other thing I want to address real quick is to make sure we all know how hard our volunteer firemen risk their lives every day, our fire department, our police department. But make sure you go around to the volunteer fire departments, make sure the toilets are working, the doors are working, and give a little extra time. And all of you, really, because these men and women, I was a volunteer fireman in Cheshire for many years, and we do put our life on the line, and we do not get paid for it. And we do help a lot of people do a lot of things. So we have to, I think, show more of appreciation to the men and women of the volunteers and make sure that their houses are in. When I was a commissioner, the houses were pretty beat up. They were pretty, some of the doors, the toilet wasn't fixed for 3 months. I'm here when I became a commissioner, I think someone should have said, Chris, put your head down, just listen for a year and don't open your mouth. I probably would have done a better job. But anyways, in closing, there is one volunteer. Before I left office being a commissioner, I mentioned it at the commission, and I want the town, you leaders, to know one member that should be recognized when he does retire. It's Doug Badgley, okay? If you don't know this, and a lot of people never knew it, I didn't know it until my last year as a commissioner. Doug leaves his job and he doesn't get paid. And he's always on that truck. That is a person that I call a leader. I call a unbelievable, amazing citizen. And Doug and I have become friends throughout the years with my fight for the fire department through the 4 years I was a commissioner. But when he does retire, it is your responsibility as leaders to recognize this gentleman, because the amount of work that Doug does in this town is by far the most amazing individual I have ever met. When a gentleman leaves his work, does not get paid, and he has bills just like the rest of us, to recognize this gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen, you are my friends. I look forward to working with you in the past or in the future, and have a great night. Take care.
Thank you. Who's next?
Me again, I just knocked her over with my purse. This is kind of Melissa Hallgren, 31 Birchcrest Valley. I owe you an apology. Mitchell, I owe you an apology. I misspoke tonight. I said something that was, I thought, kind of funny, but I could see how it could be offensive when I referenced that this was possibly a town council meeting or a gender reveal. I'm doing this for two reasons. One, because I respect both of you. I had a wonderful conversation with him. It wasn't meant to harm anybody or to hurt anybody, but I hope going forward there are other people here who owe others apologies, that you can take a page from my playbook and make these things right going forward to start a new track, and I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa. Anyone else?
Hi. Katie Wade, 39 Madeline Lane. I apologize, new to this. I didn't realize I could have just spoken twice at the beginning. But I also wouldn't have been able then to thank you all for taking action on the safety for the linear trail. Many families, mine included, utilize that trail, and this has a direct, immediate, positive impact, and it is appreciated. I'd also like to again request that Southington fly the Ukrainian flag. Many nations flew our beloved flag in solidarity after the attacks of 9/11. So I remind you of Ukrainian President Zelensky's words that Ukraine is experiencing a 9/11 every day. There is no ordinance in place at this time to prevent us showing our support of Ukraine. And if there is a vote to enact such an ordinance tonight, I read the charter last night. Our charter requires you to first advertise that decision in 2 newspapers, and then it would be 20 days from publication before it would go into effect. So this is a choice being made by the council, and I believe actions speak to our values. So many things to talk about. But I actually wanted to focus on the budget, specifically the school budget, which, by the way, is the reason I'm ever in this room at all. My motivation to pay more attention to town governance began with the budget decisions that were made after what could have been a windfall amount of money for our school system we received from the American Rescue Plan. Not here to belabor that point. I have kids, and I spend time in their school. I'm a PTO mom. Though I'm not speaking on behalf of any organization, I would invite any of you to sit in on a meeting and find out about the amount of work parents already must do to support our schools. I know line item control for this budget is at the Board of Education. So last fall, when I heard Councilman Zizik say that he regretted not cutting more money from the proposed school budget, I began to wonder if maybe the council did not know what is already not being covered. The money that PTOs raise sometimes goes towards Popsicle Fridays and spring carnivals. But more often, it goes towards what may be considered extras by some, like buses for field trips, water bottle fillers when the fountains had to be turned off, any playground equipment that is needed to replace broken or outdated structures, which sometimes amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We happily do this because there is no money in the budget for it, and Southington kids need field trips and recess. But we also pay for things that before my kids started school and I got involved, I just assumed would be covered in a good school district. This is certainly not the full list, but PTOs pay for portions of school property maintenance. We purchase necessary, not extra technology equipment, music stands. If you have a child in elementary school and their classroom has Scholastic News available for their lessons, that's the PTO. We buy the books for our children's classrooms, the bookshelves, and the rugs our kids sit on at story time. Southington already has some of the lowest per pupil spending in the state. If the council's plan for this year is to cut $500,000 from the requested budget, I wonder where it will come from and what it will mean for our kids. Truly, will Southington graduates fall behind their peers from neighboring districts? Will we have the money to continue to provide our students with safe school buildings? Our district really does employ some of the best educators and administrators. Will they stay if surrounding towns have more to offer them? Towns with good schools retain their home values, and they have lower crime rates. They are also a source of pride for a community. So I'll ask you a question I've directed previously to the Board of Education. Why are our kids not worth the same investment as those in Cheshire and Wallingford? I thank you for your time this evening, and I wish you the best of luck with the important decisions.
Thank you.
Tom Catricala, 204 Stonegate Road. I'm here to talk about something that myself, Southington Police, as well as activist friends I have in both Hartford, New Haven, and Southington, we've all noticed a surprising uptick in white supremacist and anti-Semitic literature around Southington, Hartford, New Haven, and I just actually got a notification from a friend in Manchester that the same group, I'm not going to give them oxygen, I'm not going to say their names, but it's a worrying trend that we've noticed. And one of the things that we've noticed is that Southington in particular has really been a target of these groups this past year. One thing I do want to make clear to everybody here, in the audience, on the board, is that these groups that spread this stuff are not, excuse me, these groups that spread this stuff are not basement dwelling trolls in their mom's basement. This is an organized and coordinated national effort to radicalize the population of Southington. And I'm bringing this up to ask the 9 of you here, why do you think that is the case? Why do you think these anti-Semitic and white supremacist fascist groups have targeted Southington? Are there any actions, legislation, ordinances that maybe appease these groups and make it a welcoming place for these types of fascist groups? Maybe it's inaction on the part of others. I don't know. All I'm going to ask is that, moving forward, we really think about why these groups are targeting Southington and trying to radicalize this community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, Rich.
All right, so I was originally going to speak a lot longer, but it's been a long night, so I'll be kind of brief. Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. I think over and over again we hear from citizens in this town that we all just want to be proud of our town, and I'm just at the risk of sounding redundant. I'm just gonna once again mention how great of an idea I think a civic engagement committee would be for Southington. I think you hear little bits and pieces of it, and quite frankly, almost everyone who spoke tonight said something that more or less could be used to argue in favor of a civic engagement committee. I mean, you could look at the model town charter to see exactly what the language is in there, so what like the specific purposes would be. But tonight I'm just going to talk like brass tacks about it. Like really, we should be looking into things that the entire town can rally behind. Things we should want our young people to be, to want to be ambassadors of Southington and represent Southington in the best light possible when they go out and about in other towns. Not because there's any sort of pressure on them to do it, but simply because they want to. I said this at the town charter revision committee public hearing, whenever that was last week. Just tossed out an idea for sort of like a yearly state of the town address. And I said, I imagine it being sort of like a really local State of the Union address, not with all the standing up and sitting down every 30 seconds, but just like, you guys get together and pick one issue. Because I know that the Democrats and Republicans in this town can come together and at least one sort of major issue that the town's facing, or just one major thing that we have a plan for heading forwards. An older gentleman who comes to these meetings sometimes was talking, he mentioned that he said it would be nice if we had a plan. And now I trust you guys. I do think there is a plan. I don't think we're just operating in chaos here, but it would be nice if we had some sort of plan that we could all just rally behind, I'm sort of rambling. I had something much more sophisticated plan, but I'm tired, as I'm sure we all are. So thank you guys. I appreciate all you do. Oh, and I want to take back the idea I threw out last year where I said we should do public forums once every month or something like that, because I've realized just how hard our town manager works. Seen him at all the committees I go to. A+ job. I don't want to put any undue stress on him, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Effie Mutajanis, 53 Rusterbook Drive. What Richard's saying, community engagement, I think that's really important. Colleen, you said, have coffee with people. Melissa, you apologized for the gender reveal comment. This is what's missing, guys, like talking to each other. This is what's missing. This is like, we're doing like Facebook level, engagement with each other. And this is the stuff that is missing, stuff that we can all get together on. My parents owned a restaurant in New Britain for like 35 years. That lunch counter saw like the gambit of political discourse for 35 years. I saw it. I was involved in it. Veterans, younger people, immigrants, everybody, okay? And this is what's missing in our lives. Take it, for what it's worth. But I'd like the last few minutes or whatever, it's really a hopeful moment for me. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Susan Sabahansky, Working Street. I missed the part about the budget. So I do want to thank the Board of Finance for being very diligent about looking at the budget and looking forward to see what's going to happen to the taxpayers in Southington. It's not just about the school children. I mean, we all can agree that our children are important to us, but it's about tightening our belts during a very tough upcoming economic time for everyone. 70% of our taxpayers in town do not have children in the school department. So it's important that the Board of Finance and this council look out for everyone in the town and not just a certain percentage of taxpayers. So, and we all need to be diligent in our budgeting, especially now. So I'm grateful that the budget was not cut, but it wasn't given as large of an increase as they requested, because that has to be maintained going forward year after year after year. And every time we give an increase, we have to continue to give that increase. And we're in a position where we need to close a school, and we should be really seriously looking at that. And I'm hoping that that happens within the next few years. I know it's a hard thing to work through, but when we do that, that automatically cuts that budget for the taxpayer and for everyone in town. So it's important that we really be looking into tightening our belt everywhere. And the town, 80% of our taxes go to the Board of Ed budget. So, I mean, that's the place to cut if we're going to make cuts. And it's not even a cut. Let's not call it a cut, because it's just not as big an increase as they're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? I forgot to read this into the record, so if it's all right with everybody, Val and I were at Bread for Life not too long ago, and a subject came up about panhandling in Southington and trying to balance the needs of people, and yet we having panhandlers in the community. Sometimes we wonder if the need is really there, and I think others have thought that too. So we talked a little bit about it, and I mentioned it to Donna Ayer that day and Missy that I was very interested if we could get everybody who was involved. So there was a meeting today with Donna Ayer and Missy from Bread for Life. Janet Mellon is also involved from our community services, and Deputy Chief Bill Palmieri. And he sent me a note, and he said, "Hello, Councilwoman Triano, Donna, Missy, and Janet and I are looking at the panhandling within the town of Southington. We are receiving more and more questions on how best to handle panhandlers in our community. We believe that any community response would involve the increase of education and awareness of current community resources, the best way to support or help those in need within our town, and clear guidelines on what is and is not acceptable in relation to panhandling in the town of Southington. We are currently working on a community program to educate and help members of our community to find the best way to help a person in need. We would like to bring our program ideas to the town council at one of the May board meetings. Any questions, please contact me." So I apologize, everybody. I should have read it early on, and it was just so much going on. They are meeting. It's just a small group of the people that deal with folks who are most needy in our community. And probably I'm thinking maybe the first meeting in May, if we can get them to start the ball rolling to talk about it. Bristol has signage up, and it's a sign that the different plazas have up that state that there's ways to give to the poor, and anyone can call this number if they're in need or whatever. But we're really in the beginning stage. We certainly want to help our community and those that are in severe need. In the same way, we want to make sure that the request is genuine, and so stay tuned is what I'm saying. And if you have any questions, please give me a call, or you can even speak to Deputy Chief. He's kind of heading up the committee and looking at different programs in different other communities to see what we can come up with that is not punitive but helpful to those that are in need. So is that okay, everybody? I'm sorry I did it out of order, but I really think it was very important to share that. So, all right, moving on. We're done with public communication. Item number 8, old business, action on the modification of seal, town flag, and display of flag ordinances. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for action on the modification of seal, town flag, and display of flag ordinances attached to our package, which was approved by the Ordinance Committee.
So your motion is to approve the ordinance as it's presented to us, correct?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's have a discussion. Yes, Val. I'm sorry, Chris, I thought it was Val saying.
I'm surprised that we're looking to take action on this tonight. We've often, especially with items that are controversial, not took action the same night as a public hearing. Good example, the budget. We're obviously voting on the budget the next meeting, not this meeting. So I'd recommend we not. So with that, I'll make a motion to table.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to table, and Jack, did you second it? That was
Yes.
that. Jack seconded it. We have a motion and a table, and there's no comment on a table,
Media vote.
just a vote. Let's just take it. There's a motion to table. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
No.
Del Santo,
No.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
No to table.
Lombardi,
No to table.
Morelli,
Go to table.
Triano.
No. So the motion to table is defeated. So the original motion is on board. Is there up? Is there any further discussion on the motion? Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
All right, so I'll say that normally I've been sitting up here for, I don't know, a little under 5 years. We kind of get these issues that come up once, I don't know, a couple times, but they're very difficult, okay? So sitting up here, we just listen to public comments on both sides, and people could be sitting there, you could be weighing it if you're objective. There's very good points to both sides, and these are very difficult votes. And I didn't wake up this morning looking forward to taking this vote today. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to vote yes to the ordinance, okay? So Walter, Mitchell, I understand that means the pride flag will not be flown, okay? I'm not sitting here, I get zero joy from this. And I'm going to kind of bifurcate my comments between the sovereign flags and the pride flag. You can shake your head, it's true. I'm speaking from the truth. It's difficult because you're going to hurt people. I know people are going to walk out of here being hurt. There's emotions on the not the dais, the podium. There's emotions. And I feel for those people. And Mitchell, you are a great leader. The way you said to everybody tonight, it's going to go on tomorrow, right? This isn't zero sum. And I'll attend your pride events. I attended the flag raising. I don't talk about it on here. I was there with Chris. I was there with Val. Jack, I don't think you were there. You could interrupt me if you were. And I think it was the third speaker tonight. She literally stole the words out of my mouth. To see the generations and to see the validation, it was very, very, very moving. And I understand that people are going to be hurt because that's not going to happen. Now, the other side of the coin, okay? Someone brought up Walker versus Texas, and I'm so happy you brought it up, right? Walker versus Texas, just briefly, is a 2015 Supreme Court case, not 1915, 2015, where someone petitioned to have the Confederate flag on a license plate. 2015, we're talking. So that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, that is really my motivation in passing this ordinance tonight, okay? Is because you're going to get the applications. You can say we're not, but it's good governing to prepare for them when they come. So how would you feel? I think everyone can agree the Confederate flag, I don't think anyone in this room wants it, right? It symbolizes sedition. So the Confederate flag's easy. Okay. What about the Russian flag? We're not at war with Russia. We're not at war. So what if someone makes a petition for the Russian flag? That is not hate speech. So what is the process to deny that? So without having a very, very strong, crystal clear process, you're going to have people that are going to be hurt. So my opinion is that you hurt less people overall in the town, and balancing the town. This ordinance is what's best for the town overall. And I apologize to you guys that the people are hurt tonight. I don't take this lightly. I do not appreciate this vote, but it is what it is, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions.
Thank you. Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like Councilman Dietzick said, I get it. This is an emotional issue, and people will be mad at us, and I get it. But I just wanted to put my opinion forward that this is not about one group. This is not about one organization, or this is not about one country, but rather a way to put forth sound policy that keeps government focused and not infringe on people's lives. If we've learned anything tonight, we've seen how organized, how motivated, and how dedicated the local Pride group is. But I'm not voting on this because of one group or another group. And bottom line is this, as Mitchell stated, the Pride group doesn't need government. It's going to operate on its own. It's going to do the good things that they do. It's going to help the youth, and they're going to do a wonderful job. The other thing that we heard over and over again is that we want to be inclusive, and we want to allow all flags. Well, how inclusive do we want to be? Do we want to include the communist flag? Do we want to include the Confederate flag? What about religious flags? What about political flags? What about a Trump flag? What about civic organizations? What about guns? What about drugs? So I think that the people that are talking about being inclusive this evening, and others who I've spoken to, would be the same exact people who would be at the podium opposing a decision for a flag that was raised that they disagreed with. So I'm fully aware that we will take criticism and critique for this decision, but I'm willing to do that for the future councils and for the operations of this town. The last thing I want to do is have somebody open that budget book and look at the town salaries for our town staff and tell them that they took 5 days to review applications on which flags were going to be raised. I will never support that as long as I'm on this dais. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes, Mike.
Just a couple of brief things. The gentleman that came up tonight that was in the middle, he spoke to me. He came here, he was going to speak for the ordinance, and then when he sat there, he listened, and then he said, I'm not really sure if I'm for or against it. And he brought it up. How do we stop a Let's Go Brandon flag? How do we stop someone putting an application in that says, Let's Go Brandon? Okay, this is not an anti-LGBTQ plus flag ordinance. It is not. And I know a lot of you think it is. It is not. And I take exception to the folks think that we just woke up this morning and we're going to come tonight and vote for this and not listen to the people that come here. We listen to all.
Tom, please. We gave you time. Go ahead.
We listen to everyone that comes to that podium. Okay? We put the time in. Right? For this ordinance, I'm going to focus on the donut, not the hole. Okay? This is bigger than the LGBTQ plus flag. All right? How do we stop flag requests like this gentleman spoke about tonight? That's my problem.
Thank you.
Madam
Yes,
Chair?
Jack.
Thank you. So obviously this evening, I was kind of keeping track of, who spoke for and against it. It's roughly about 17 people spoke for it. 5 people against it, and obviously the one person that was on the fence. I think it's very important us as elected officials. I've been coming to these meetings for about 7 years. This is obviously my first term on the council. And I've said it so many times that we as elected officials aren't listening to our community. That is how I got involved actually in politics, is because, again, I was coming to meetings, seeing that people's voices weren't being listened to. I think we're doing a disservice to our community by not having a process. I'm fine with, again, us as elected officials to take these votes, or again, us as a council to put forward, these requests and us have a vote on it. Again, to this date, the pride flag has not been voted on by this council. And we spoke about it at the last meeting. I do not know why we didn't. And again, it's just the timing of this whole thing with the flag ordinance and the charter revision. And I'm watching what's going on in the charter revision, and it looks like the main focus is the library. So, the argument originally stated that it's because of us having a new library. And I spoke to some other people, and some people think it's because of some of the programs they had last year with Pride. And obviously, the charter revision would then put some of the control of the director or other town or library individuals under somebody's control to kind of prevent some of that. I just don't think this is open and transparent government. I don't think this is anything that, we're not representing our town at the very least. We need less government. And, it breaks my heart as a parent to watch some of the residents and speakers this evening come out. And obviously, there's a lot of passion behind this. And it's just embarrassing right now to serve with some of the council members. I'm going to tell you how I absolutely feel. It's embarrassing to be up here and watch people break down and cry in front of us, and we're not listening. That's what it's breaking down to be. We're not listening. So with that being said, at the very least, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion that's before us to include the pride flag being allowed to be flown in the town of Southington.
We do, we've got a motion. What do we do?
I can make amendment.
We have a motion.
Correct.
I can make an amendment. I just need a
Requesting to make an amendment to the pending motion.
You would have to ask the person that made the motion
Well,
to.
I'm trying to find out the legality of it. Alex, can you
got
do
a
that?
pending motion.
Right.
That's been seconded, and that's the motion that's on the table.
And you can't amend that, right?
If-
Right now.
Right, not right now.
Not right now. So the motion, Jack, did you just understand what he said?
Well, he,
I
Go
thought
ahead. I don't wanna-
he can make a motion to amend it, and then you could.
somebody would have to second it.
All right, well, I'll second Jack's motion.
Thank you.
What is this? What are we doing here? What
Robert's
did you
Rules of
say?
Law.
So the motion, Madam Chair, I think is that there's a request to amend the original motion.
So okay, so he has that
Give a second.
second. And so now,
You would vote on the amendment.
let's vote.
Just for
this-
clarifying, I'm making a motion to amend the current, new ordinance proposed to include the pride flag to being allowed to be flown in the town of Southington.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand. All right, so
Just for clarification, are you amending to try to amend the ordinance to include that in the ordinance as a
As an
permanent-
approved flag to
as
be
a
flown.
approved flag after the section?
I have a question on that. Right. I have a question on that, Madam Chair. Procedurally, when we do, this is not a policy of the town council. This is an ordinance which has to be written up and has to have a public hearing, so it cannot be amended on the floor.
Right.
It could be amended, the motion could be amended on the floor. You could deny it for that particular person, if you wish to choose to. If you choose to vote no, you can deny it for that purpose, or any purpose you wish.
Yeah, there's no mechanism to actually do it legally tonight, so I don't see how it's possible. I mean, that's, okay, that's.
You can call the roll and.
yeah, let's just do,
Discussion first.
okay, discussion.
All the more reason to table it.
Right, but can I raise in our procedure, so I want to get the town attorney's opinion as to how he would interpret this. So under paragraph 20, under passage, under 20A, Alex, it says, any ordinance which shall have had its public hearing shall be open for debate and amendment at any subsequent meeting of the council. So is the intent there, the intent to me is that we have, with these ordinances and resolutions, we mark it for a public hearing because we heard from a lot of people and both sides, and it's a lot to digest. So typically, like the budget, we have the public hearing tonight. And
The
then
budget's the charter. You have your
the budget's in the
public
charter,
hearing.
right? But on other,
Not to confuse the budget part of it, but you have.
right, but on other public hearings that we've had, right? We'll have a public
If I
hearing
can
and then
just
we'll.
intervene for a minute, that's not true, Mark, because we used to have the budget public hearing the night that we voted on the budget. Years when I served on the council, we did. We changed that.
No, what we used to do is you have public input. We used to have public input. We moved to have an actual public hearing, which is the meeting before the budget. That's what we do now. We've done that in the last probably 12 years, 11
Right.
years. Yeah. But before that, we didn't have an official public hearing. We just had public input the night of the budget.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but it wasn't a charter thing. It was a decision of the council.
It's a policy, correct.
Right.
Right. But
Right.
what you're talking about is the public hearing. We have a public hearing the last 11 years. You've never voted at the night of the public hearing because of the fact of the budget, because the budget calls for a vote for the meeting of the first meeting in May. That's why the charter calls for that.
But I guess just say,
I just don't, I don't
even
want to confuse
another
the two.
issue,
You have an
though,
ordinance,
right?
you have the budget, they're two different things.
But I'd say what Val just read is exactly how I began by saying, do we not vote the night that we have a public hearing on such a topic?
That actually talks about there shouldn't be any discussion after Mr. Dietzick made his first and someone made the second. It says, the motion for final passage shall not be debatable and shall take precedence over all other motions except for adjournment.
But
But
we
that's-
adopted Robert's Rules of Law, and in that case, that's a conflict, because again, under Robert's Rules of Law, you should be able to amend a motion. So I'm making an amendment on that motion because, again, we had a huge outpour of our community here, and I think, again, we owe it to them.
Just call the roll.
Okay, on the amendment.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right, we're going to call the roll on the amendment. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
No.
Del Santo,
No.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
No,
Dietzick,
it's an ordinance.
Lombardi,
No.
Morelli, Triano.
No. All right, so there is a motion on the floor. Are there any, is there any further discussion on it?
Oh, just if we can get an answer on, I still,
Absolutely. So this was a subsequent meeting. Your public hearing is not a meeting. So this is the subsequent meeting after the public hearing.
okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Tom.
On the discussion, there are several causes, Pride being one of them, different countries, different organizations that are worthy of having an exception to this rule for. But we're either for a policy or we're not. And I'm not going to sit here and try to garner votes from this group or that group or that group. I'm looking the taxpayer straight in the face and saying, this is the best policy for the town. And I'm not going to play political games up here and say, you know, this group, yes, or maybe this group, yeah. That's it. Let's vote on this, either yes or no. And if people want to be mad at us for it, then so be it. We're leaders of this community. And the concept of not listening, we're also elected to make decisions and put the town in a good position going forward. And we've spent tons of time on this. The ordinance committee has spent a lot of time on this, and we're going to move forward as a town, and we're not going to have this debate again. So with that, I'll be supporting the motion on the floor put forward by Mr. Dietzick.
Yes,
Madam
go
Chair?
ahead.
Chair, just
Val, did you want to go?
Sure, unless Paul wants to go.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Val.
So I just want to go back to, I have quite a bit that I'd like to say, just trying to organize it. You know, Mr. Lombardi, we have spent quite a bit of time on this, but, you know, the way I kind of look at this is, I don't necessarily know that we had a problem. You know, if you really go back to the beginning, like if we really go back to the beginning, I don't believe we had a problem. We had, over the past, I spoke with the town manager, over the past 20 to 30 years, maybe 5 different flags that, you know, that were raised, right? The Greek flag was for years. The organ donor flag, the flag for nurses, and the pride flag. So I don't believe we had a problem. And I think the problem came forward when all of a sudden on an agenda, which we were not aware of, this ordinance was placed on an agenda. And it was placed on the agenda not only for discussion, but for action on that night. So we needed to do this process correctly because we need to follow our policy and procedures. And that's why this has taken on a life of its own, because now we're following the policy and procedure, and there's a way that this has to be done. Councilor Chaplinsky and I had a phone conversation and said this should go to the ordinance committee. It went to the ordinance committee, and you know, so that's, you know, Councilor Lombardi, that's why this has taken all this time, because it was something that the majority, you tried to put on there, do it quickly, let's get a vote. You have the majority, you would have had the vote, but we were able to look at the process. So we're doing something, we're doing it correctly, which, you know, I'm very thankful that we're doing it that way. And then just, to speak to the ordinance, I mean, I have, I'm speaking from my heart here, but I appreciate everyone who spoke tonight. I've been trained as an attorney, so obviously I know there's two sides to every story, right? There's two sides, there's always two arguments, and I get all that. And I read case law, and I respect everybody who spoke here tonight for both sides. And I think it's very courageous of everyone who can step up and speak. But I also, as people have come up and said that what they're seeing here tonight, what they saw here at the end tonight, of people coming together and being able to speak and listen to each other and understand that we're all the same. We all want what's best for our town, right? We all want what's best for our kids. Jack just said it's heartbreaking to hear a young man come up here and cry, right? Because this has hurt him so much. And I've lived some of that in my own life. So it is heartbreaking, but we have to listen to each other. And that's, and Mrs. Ritchie, who spoke about all the other things that the groups can be doing to foster programs and safe spaces. And you're absolutely right. There's so many things that we can be doing, and I think we are doing. I think different groups do a ton of work. I just see the flag as, I see being able to raise different flags as just another way to foster the inclusion and the diversity and the positive, bringing civic engagement into this and public engagement. I don't think this is about just the American flag. The American flag is the American flag. Like, I think we all get that, and I respect that tremendously. I just think this is another way for that young gentleman like Bradley, if he saw growing up that every year there was a pride, a flag raising, it's just a symbol. It's just a symbol, but it says a lot to him. It says a lot that there's acceptance. And, my fellow members up here on the table, you are absolutely right. I understand. Bill, you came to our flag. I understand what you're saying, but there's a lot of groups that could benefit by having a flag raising ceremony or flying a flag, even for, the nurses, right? When we were honoring nurses, somebody said they drove by every day, right, Jolene, and that made you feel good. So it's not just the pride group, it's for all these good things that I think the objective of our town is to foster that. And I look at this as something that would bring us all together, and if there was going to be a process like South Windsor has or like other towns have, the process has to be really well thought out. It has to be a process where there's an application. The application has to be well thought out, and whoever's going to make the decision has to be able to make the decision. So whether it's the town manager with a couple of his department heads, or whether it's the council, that's what South Windsor does. You guys have said it yourselves. You're up here making a tough decision. This is a very difficult decision that everybody is making. So if we're making this decision, and you're able to make this decision, then it should be okay to be able to make a decision if it's an application process and they're screened. We're not going to get 50 applications. At first we might get a few, but common sense is going to prevail. If it's an application for something that we cannot get behind as a town council, I'm willing to be able to step up and make that decision. And yes, it might not make some people happy, but we would be able to make, I think.
So you're the king now? You're going to make the decisions?
That's not fair, Jim.
She has the floor, Madam Chair.
Wow.
It's okay. We're all set.
That's
Go ahead.
really not.
Go ahead, Val.
You know what, Jim? That's really not fair at all. I'm not the king. I'm saying that we all can make difficult decisions. Your colleagues have said that tonight, that they're making difficult decisions, and I respect that. I don't respect what you spit out up here.
Yeah, go on, okay.
All right. You know what, Madam Chair? I'm just trying to point out that everybody had their opinion tonight, and we listened to that. And I respect those opinions, even if I don't agree with them. And I don't see that, I do see this as a prohibition. I really do. And I just simply see that if we could raise flags for good purposes, that's going to foster a very good environment in our town.
Thank you, Val. Anyone
Chair,
else?
can I have the floor now, please?
Yes, you can, Jim.
Okay. So I think we heard some really constructive criticism tonight from both sides of this situation. And Councilwoman DiPaolo had asked for this to be tabled and go to the Ordinance Committee for review, which it did. It was a bipartisan review. It was not just Republicans. It was reviewed, and it was voted on, and it came here. The reasons why we want to make this vote tonight are very clear. And I have to say that I'm just as embarrassed to be sitting up here as Mr. Perry is. You know, all we hear from you three is you want transparency, you want cooperation, you want unity. And then you never will see the other side to any issue. It's always your way or the highway. And so we had to listen to the same argument like 6 times from you guys tonight. So you say it's not political. I say you rallied your troops to be in here for a political reason. And that's why I will vote yes for the ordinance.
Okay, Jim.
I just have to say, I take offense to that. I think we've been respectful. I think we've heard from the public. I think we've tried to be respectful to each other. Mr. Morelli, the comment you made to Val was extremely disrespectful. And other than that, she was talking about the council as a body. She was not talking about herself individually. She was talking about the council as a body. And
Okay, Madam Chair, may I?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, this is, we're colleagues up here.
Okay.
We're colleagues
So-
up here, and this is what we have to
All
put
right,
up with.
everybody, please, I have the floor.
Gotta be freaking kidding.
So I understand that there's a great deal of emotion right now. And so,
I'd like to have one word if I could, in a positive way, please.
all right.
I would
go
like
ahead.
to. I'd like to just say I do. To Val, I appreciate the conversations that we've had on this. I think it needed to go through the process. So, looking back at it, I think the intention could have been making this a town council policy versus an ordinance. I think the right thing to do was to go through an ordinance that can be debated. But I think it was good. I'm glad that we were able to get some of the additional things into this through the subcommittee. I'm glad that they listened. I know that there was a lot of debate on there. The school stuff was added in because there was current curriculums that required or that they were flying flags for diversity reasons. Where they said, hey, let's talk about diversity in our schools. And I think Chris has some in his school as well for some of the other sovereign nations, which is really great. I agree that this is a symbol, Val. I think I do agree that, flying a flag is a symbol. I think our actions are more important as well. Getting out there and being in front of people and supporting people, doing the things like we did, with the Ukraine, attending the events that are upcoming for the Pride community. I think those are meaningful. And I'm hoping that, this council sitting here deciding which flag is the appropriate flag, because you use the term, getting behind as a council and defining what good is, good flags. There's another council person who received a request some months ago for a Catholic flag. My grandparents were born in the Ukraine. My father was born in Germany. Personally, part of me says it'd be nice to fly a flag, at the town. But part of me also, as somebody who's looking at what the role of government is and whether government, should be deciding on what good is. I struggle with that a little bit. And I think I echo Councilman Dietzig's and Lombardi's comments that, those decisions can be difficult because, we say good is X and other people say good is Y. And then we start to get into, one party believes in these things, another party believes in these, and then we have a divided community. I don't think that there's an easy way around this. There's no easy way around this. No matter what decision is taken, there's going to be unhappy people, unfortunately. So, you know, I was extremely heartfelt and moved by some of the comments. I had an opportunity to speak to Bradley, you know, tell him how touched I was, and I look forward to supporting Bradley and others. I spoke to Mitchell. I can't say enough about how articulate you are when you come out here and talk. My heart is genuinely with you on it. So it's not, this is not an easy thing for me. It's about the role of government and what role government plays in these type of situations versus personal belief.
Yes, Jack?
Thank you. So I guess want to end on this, that again, I'll be voting no because I don't think we are going to be listening to our constituents. And to echo something that Councilman Dezek said months ago, that I guess me, Chris, and Val will have to work harder to make sure that our community is being represented in the way that they want to see us being represented. And tonight's comments by Mr. Morelli, or Councilman Morelli, was disheartening. And again, he is right that you guys aren't listening to three of us. And that is sad because we do represent the community. So thank
I
you.
just said you had to work hard. I don't think I talked about them. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I don't think I talked about them. I remember what you're saying now.
Is everyone finished? I want to just.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, that can't be the last word. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Just I need 1 minute. So I served in politics for over 20 years now. The majority of them being on planning and zoning. In planning and zoning commissioners, not that I'm patting myself on the back, because the group that's there now is doing a great job as well, but we make the hardest decisions on planning and zoning because it's regulations. And most of the time when people come up and they speak for and against things, it's very emotional because it affects them directly. It's in their backyard, it's down the street from them, it's around the corner from them, and traffic may be an issue. So to say we're not listening to our constituents, it's such a wrong thing to say, Councilman Perry. It's so off base. We are listening. We were charged by this town to make decisions for the best interest of the entire town, not for the 24 people that came up here tonight to speak, for all 44,000 residents of this town. Okay, so what you characterize as us not listening to our constituents, I call bull on that. I'm sorry. That's it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I just want to close the comments from my own personal thing. First of all, I want to say that last year we made it clear that we appreciate every person's contribution to Southington, and we passed the first resolution ever, not Republican, not Democrat. That council last year, we passed the resolution. And we also allowed the flag. One of the things we found after that, and even though we talked about it, I guess it was in, I don't know, late January, early February or whatever, was that a lot of people, there was a lot of discussion. Same people were asking, well, what can we fly? What aren't we going to fly? And one of the things right then and there I knew that we had to act is because you cannot govern on emotion or whim. We heard emotion tonight. We were all touched. There were things there that we wish we didn't have to. It was uncomfortable and all of that. That is emotion. But when we're talking about the United States of America flag, a flag that people didn't ask if they were gay or straight or white or black or from what country our origin is from. They went out, they did a job, died on the battlefield for that flag. That flag is inclusive. That flag represents diversity. That flag relates to being equitable to all people. I have nothing against the gay flag. This was never initiated as something against the gay community or the LGBTQ plus A plus. It was initiated because we did not have the tools within our pocket to ensure that everyone would be treated equally and fairly in the town of Southington unless we reinforce the fact that the American flag is our flag. every single person in this room, every person that stood at that podium tonight and talked about the struggles that we went through. The message of our flag is your home. This is your home. We don't need anything else. We have the American flag. So I am very passionate about it. And I want to make sure it's on record, and whether somebody doesn't believe me or not, that's their issue. I know where I stand. I know that our community needs every single person to be free, to exercise their rights. But that flag is on that flag has been bought with the blood of people who died for all of us, not for one person. And so, and you know what, with the same grace that we gave other people tonight when they got emotional and whatever, we understood. It is very personal. But in the same way, we cannot let emotion and whim dictate what's best for the citizens of our town, no matter what groups we belong to. And so, having said that, I'm going to close the discussion right now.
Madam Chair,
And I know I'm not going to entertain anymore. You had 3 times. I don't want to hear anything
You got to
else.
make a motion to end the debate.
No, you don't.
No.
Motion, second.
It's seconded.
Call the
I'm
roll.
going to move the motion right
We have
now.
Robert's Rules of Law.
Could somebody
Rules
make
of
a
Order,
motion to
not
move
Robert's Rules of Law.
make a motion to move the motion, please?
The same thing. Huh?
Jack. Are we all right with that? Let's go. Madam Clerk.
Palmieri,
No.
Perry,
No.
Chaplinsky.
Yes.
Del Santo.
Yes.
DiPaolo,
No.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. The motion passes.
So, because,
All right, go ahead.
All right, I just want to give everybody an opportunity to. All right. Item B, action on the appointment of a library architect. Bill, I'm sorry, Jim?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to recommend the submittal from Drumney, Rosane, Anderson for the sum of $1,093,500, subject to an agreeable contract.
Thank you. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Madam Chair, would you call, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please? Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. Anybody have anything to discuss about the architect? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo.
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Dietzick,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli, Triano.
Yes. Actions C on the report of the Board of Finance.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Val.
I'll second.
Second by Tom. Any discussion on the report of the Board of Finance? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item D, action on the award water valve installation at both primary clarifying.
Motion to approve is presented.
Thank you, Chris.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. That passes unanimously. Item E, action on the award removal of underground storage tank on Stonegate Road.
Motion to approve is presented.
Thank you.
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item 9, new tax refunds, Jack?
I make a motion to approve the tax refunds presented in our packet.
Second.
Who said second? Dick?
Second.
Bill Dietzick, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Thank you, passes. A motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.